Chapter 694. Black clouds covered the peak of the immortal mystic mountain. It was hard to tell if it was demonic energy or thunderclouds, but it was terrifying. Helian Shan and the group of immortal sect elders stared at the countless demonic figures that suddenly appeared on the mountain path. They felt their breathing quicken and their heartbeats quicken. They actually felt like they were suffocating. F***CK? It can't be, right? Didn't you just attack the immortal sect a few days ago? What's the meaning of doing it again? There's nothing else to do, right? Furthermore, the one standing beside Gu Jin is Sha Yun? Did this group of ocean race god emperors really join hands with the great demon? Sect Master Helion, it seems like we have to put aside today's grudge. Ling Xiao stepped forward and stood in front of the elders of the immortal sects. His face was solemn. Saint's son, do you want to call the first divine messenger back to slay the demons? Helian Shan swallowed his saliva. That day, he had used his own strength to kill the 4 leaders of the demon sect and tens of thousands of disciples. He had already suffered a great backlash. If it wasn't for the importance of the battle for the Heavenly Lake, he would most likely be in seclusion to heal his injuries. He wouldn't have the time to brag here. Furthermore, that day, although he had casually received Sha Yun's palm strike, it was actually all an act. Now, even if it was a 7th-grade god emperor, he probably wouldn't be able to deal with him for long. The divine messenger is now in the depths of the sea. I'm afraid he won't be able to rush back in a short time. Sect Master, quickly activate the ancient array and slay the demons with me. Even if all of my immortal mystic sect disciples die today, we still have to teach these demons a lesson. The immortal sword in Ling Zhao's hand suddenly emitted a piercingly cold light. The determination in his words moved many elders. Saint's son, you're righteous. Although Ling Zhao's action of letting Phoenix Rouge go was indeed a little inappropriate. However, considering the Saint's son's age, F***CK, who hasn't been young and frivolous. Moreover, Phoenix Rouge was originally a disciple of the immortal sect. Was it wrong for the Saint's son to fall in love with her? Who knew that she actually hid the heavenly poison body? The Saint's son wasn't a god and didn't know the Tao of divination. How could he be a prophet? Therefore, if you really want to blame someone, you have to blame Phoenix Rouge's master, Su Yunzi, and Celestial Mystic Sect Master, Helian Shan. Especially Helian Shan. You carry the title of saint every day, you communicate with yin and yang, you know life and death. Why didn't you predict that the Phoenix Rouge was born with a poisonous body? Why didn't you remind the saint? F***CK. After beating around the bush for so long, it turned out that the Holy Sun was not wrong. Helian Shan's expression froze. If I still had the ability to activate the ancient formation, would I have needed to call the first divine emissary back to slay the demons? Could it be that the sect leader had some unspeakable difficulties? Why was he able to use the array to kill the enemy back then, but not today? Could it be? Ling Xiao frowned slightly and looked at Helian Shan suspiciously. I won't hide it from Saint Child. The injuries in my body have yet to heal. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to activate the ancient formation. So you should summon the divine envoy back. Otherwise, I'm afraid my immortal mystic sect will be annihilated today. The corner of Helian Shan's eyes trembled slightly, especially when the immortal sect elders looked at him with a complicated expression. There was an indescribable bitterness in his heart. Oh, if that's the case, I'll send a message to the divine envoy, Ling Xiao said coldly. He originally wanted to inform Dugu Yunjin about what happened in the immortal sect today. This way, he would be convinced that the demon sect and the sea race had joined hands. With Helian Shan and the immortal sect elders at the side, the first divine emissary would have to believe it even if he didn't want to. Divine Envoy Dugu. Ling Xiao held the divine token in his hand and looked at the demon sect and sea race experts who were surrounding them. His expression was extremely serious. Saint Child. Boom. Boom. Dugu Yunjin's voice was accompanied by the sound of a few spiritual auras colliding. The immortal sect elder's expressions changed at the same time. Could it be that the first divine emissary was also ambushed? Lord Divine Envoy, the demon sect and the sea race have joined hands to destroy my immortal sect. Divine Envoy, please come quickly and slay the demons. Before Ling Xiao could say anything, He Lianshan had already shouted loudly. The demon sect and the sea race have joined hands? He Lianshan, you have to take responsibility for what you said. However, what surprised Ling Xiao and He Lianshan was that at this moment, a gentle and charming female voice came from the side of the divine token. He Lianshan's expression changed and he cried out involuntarily, Zi Huang. Zi Huang? Ziyen? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into an indescribable smile. It seemed that the first divine emissary was truly skilled and daring. He fought his way to the Ocean Emperor Palace alone? He Lianshan, you said that the sea race has joined hands with the demon sect. Then tell me, which sea race has joined hands with the demon sect? In the depths of the endless sea realm, Ziyen stood with her hands behind her back. Golden light flickered in her beautiful eyes, revealing endless mysteries. In front of her, Dugu Yunjin held the divine token in his hand and his eyes were cold. At this moment, the fluctuations on their bodies were somewhat weak. It was obvious that they had just experienced a fierce battle. However, both of their cultivations were at the 9th grade. In the Shengzhou region, they were considered supreme. Apart from the Divine Master, even if they were both at the 9th grade, to be honest, it was difficult to truly kill another 9th grade Divine Emperor. Of course, Sect Master Taixian was an exception. Lord Divine Emissary, the Heavenly Alligator Clan has appeared. The Blood Shark Royal Clan and its vassal clans have appeared. A low voice came from the divine token. The golden light in Ziyan's eyes quietly trembled at this moment. This is the saint? What do you mean by the Heavenly Alligator Clan? Yizhan. Ling Zhao's words made Ziyan's face completely gloomy. Yizhan, you are indeed not dead. There were only 2 people in the entire southern border who knew this name. Besides her, there was also Yi, who was sealed at the bottom of the heavenly lake by her. Ziyen was confident in her own array Dao abilities. Not to mention Helian Shan, even Dugu Yunjin would not be able to break it easily. In that case, not only was Yizhan not dead, but he had also secretly subdued the Blood Shark Royal Clan? Zi Huang, don't you think you should give me an explanation? Dugu Yunjin put away the divine token in his hand and coldly looked at the new Sea Lord in front of him. He naturally knew about the Heavenly Alligator Clan. However, wasn't this clan exterminated 1,000 years ago? Why did it appear in the southern border now? Give you an explanation? Dugu Yunjin, you are a traitor. Do you think you are worthy of the word explanation? Ziyen sneered. Her originally calm face suddenly flickered with a trace of ferociousness. Then, before Dugu Yunjin could react, her monstrous demonic aura turned into a sea wave and crashed down with a loud bang. Who are you? Inexplicably, a trace of panic flashed in Dugu Yunjin's eyes. I told you, you are not worthy. Boom, boom. Blue waves rippled and the sea became empty. Ziyan's eyes shone with divine light. 7-colored immortal clouds gathered on her body and turned into a blurry illusory figure out of nowhere. She stood in the sky and looked down at the common people, suppressing the whole world. Ziyen, do you really think I am afraid of you? Dugu Yunjin shouted coldly. He pressed down with his palm and the divine seal spread out in all directions. There seemed to be Dao runes flickering on it. Immortal aura circulated, revealing a power that could suppress the ancient times. However, at this moment, Dugu Yunjin's mind was clearly a little flustered. His attacks were hasty and disorderly. He was actually gradually suppressed by Zi Huang. How could it be? Who is she? Chapter 695. Lord Divine Envoy. Quickly come to my immortal mystic sect. Helion Shan straightened his neck and blushed. However, when he saw that Ling Xiao had already kept the divine token, his expression immediately froze. He knew that the Heavenly Alligator clan had reappeared. However, wasn't the Heavenly Alligator's remnant soul killed by the Saint Sun? As for whether it was standing or lying down, he didn't care. However, Saint Sun, I haven't finished speaking yet. What do you mean by keeping the divine token? Everyone has heard it. Now, Lord Divine Envoy is dealing with the Purple Emperor in the sea. We can only rely on ourselves to deal with today's disaster. Ling Xiao sighed softly. Immortal aura circulated around his body, and he seemed to have regained his usual majestic appearance. Just now, he deliberately mentioned Yizhan to tell Ziyan that the Heavenly Alligator clan's Heaven's Will was still alive and had secretly accumulated strength. With Ling Xiao's means, it was really troublesome to find a person in the vast sea. However, Ziyan was different. As the Sea Emperor, she could easily mobilize the power of the entire sea. As such, Yizhan, who was hiding somewhere, would feel flustered and helpless. He would want to become stronger faster. When his heart was in a mess, his whereabouts would be exposed. Moreover, there was a wisp of Yizhan's divine sense in the clan token. As long as he revealed a trace of weakness, Ling Xiao would immediately detect his existence. Moreover, even if Yizhan didn't appear for a long time, Ling Xiao could still find the Heavenly Alligator's ancestral land and use the clan token's immortal origin to open it. At that time, this small seafood would definitely take the initiative to deliver it to him. As for the layout, of course, it was prepared in advance. As a villain, wouldn't it be no different from the Son of Heaven's will to appear wherever he went? With the world as the layout, all living beings as the children, planning layer by layer and advancing step by step. Only then could he be called a qualified villain. At this time, the immortal sect's elders no longer looked at Ling Xiao with reproach. Compared to the Heavenly Poison Lady, the disaster that the immortal mystic sect was facing was obviously more severe. F***CK. Your sect is about to be destroyed and you still care about the chaos of the world? The premise of protecting the world is that you have to be alive. Today, I will set myself as an example and defend immortal mystic sect to the death. I hope that seniors will help me. Ling Xiao glanced at the elders of the immortal sects, his eyes full of vicissitudes. The current him was truly worthy of the title of the Righteous Path's #1 light. The Holy Sun had already thrown all thoughts of love and relationships to the back of his mind. Look, this is our beloved Holy Sun. Only in times of danger does he show his magnanimity and boldness. Defending the immortal mystic sect to the death, how righteous was this? Even if the oceanic race and the demon race joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to make him take a step back. All of a sudden, those immortal sect elders who had originally harbored ill feelings towards Ling Xiao changed their minds. In life, who could be faultless? Moreover, it wasn't Holy Sun Ling Xiao's fault. It was all because Su Yunzi had accepted a good disciple. The Phoenix Rouge was as beautiful as a painting, graceful and graceful. What can I do? If it weren't for the fact that I'm old and can't move anymore, I might have fallen for him. If he didn't kill them, it would prove that the Holy Sun valued relationships. Didn't you hear what the Holy Sun said in the end? In the future, we will have nothing to do with each other. Cutting off the ill-fated relationship is to ensure that his Tao heart is flawless. Letting them live is to show his affection and righteousness. At the end of the day, the few human prodigies who had died in the heavenly lake were lucky enough to enter the greatest land of fortune in the southern territory and visit this place because they had benefited from the Holy Sun. If the Holy Sun hadn't fought against Seven and his younger brother, had killed the oceanic race's demons, these people would most likely have died on the battle stage. Before they died, they had broadened their horizons. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? Elders, the immortal mystic sect is the foundation of our righteous path. No matter what, we can't retreat even half a step today. Prepare to fight to the death. Ling Xiao stepped forward and walked towards the thousands of demonic figures. Behind him, countless immortal sect elders and disciples had strong fighting spirit in their eyes. The holy son of the sacred sect has such a noble status. Now, he is even before us. I don't believe that these demons can stop the holy son if he wants to leave. However, he still didn't turn back and swore not to retreat. What is there to say, holy son? Righteousness. Buzz. When the rain stopped, the people of the demon sect finally stood on the mountain peak. Ha ha ha, holy son of the sacred sect, you are indeed the light of the Xingzhou. Although we must destroy your immortal mystic sect today, your righteous deed should be praised by the world. Gu Zhen and Xiong Huan stood side by side in front of everyone with a look of admiration on their faces. Even the demons were shocked by the holy son's righteous deed. Hearing this, the reverence in the eyes of many immortal sect elders became stronger. There was a faint desire to face death. Demon, cut the crap. If you can't kill everyone in the immortal mystic sect today, I will kill you. Ling Xiao shouted coldly. The surrounding immortal sect elders' expressions suddenly turned serious. Domineering! The holy son is domineering! Gu Zhen was a 7th-stage martial emperor. In the holy son's eyes, he could kill him with a wave of his hand. Putting aside whether they could defeat him or not, they must win in terms of momentum. At this moment, the elders felt that the holy son's words were a little strange. But who cares? What the holy son said was naturally right. There was nothing to think about. Fight! In the end, under the command of Ling Xiao, the two forces engaged in a fierce battle. Endless spiritual power surged in the sky, and terrifying demonic light covered the sky. Divine light rose and fell, stretching for thousands of miles. The divine runes were connected, almost suppressing the sky. For the immortal mystic sect. For the people in the world. Fight to the death. Ling Zhao's purple qi stainless Tao body took the lead and rushed toward the demons. However, as soon as the soaring firmament saint appeared in front of the demons, he was instantly enveloped by countless demonic lights. In the next moment, the demonic light dissipated, and the holy son's figure disappeared into thin air. What the f***ck? Countless immortal sect elders' eyes narrowed. Their mouths were agape as they swallowed hard. So sudden? The holy son was blasted into nothingness? Sacrificed himself? With the holy son's strength, he shouldn't be killed so easily, right? Why didn't he struggle a few times before finally being powerless to reverse the situation? Oh no! The holy son was targeted. That's right. Those demonic lights were all sent out by God Thearch. Even if the holy son's talent was close to demonic, how could he fight against multiple God Thearchs? The holy son was being targeted by someone. Shameless. Despicable. Holy son, you died without a sound, but with a bang. For the holy son, fight to the death. For the holy son. Instantly, countless immortal sect disciples looked up and cried bitterly. The last trace of fear in their hearts disappeared at this moment. The holy son had already sacrificed himself. How could they have the face to escape? Knowing that it was impossible but still doing it, it was for the greater good. Boom. Boom. Countless God Thearchs rose into the sky, their bodies glowing brightly. Terrifying divine power spread in all directions, almost overturning the entire Xianxi sacred mountain. The void trembled, and layers of ripples appeared, containing endless destruction. However, when the demon sect attacked the mountain, they relied on the leaders of the 4 demon sects and tens of thousands of ordinary disciples. But now, whether it was Xiong Huan or Sha Yun, they were all more powerful than Bai Duzi and Zhang Jin. Moreover, there were close to 10 God Thearchs behind each of them. And Hellion Mountain was no longer the Hellion Mountain from a few days ago. Therefore, this battle between the righteous and demonic paths was a pure massacre from the beginning. On the mountain peak, Ling Zhao's eyes were calm. He waved his hand lightly, and a petite figure instantly appeared in front of him. The girl was holding a golden heavy halberd in her hand. It was a few feet longer than her body, which looked rather strange. It was Ning Er. Big brother! Ning Er's little face froze, and her beautiful eyes looked in the direction of the void in horror. There, layers of space collapsed, revealing countless cracks. Spirit treasures shining with divine light collided, and human figures intertwined, tearing the sky apart like a demonic abyss that swallowed all living things. Ning Er, who do you think are the good people and the bad people on this mountain peak? Although Ling Zhao's face was covered by the demonic light, his eyes were deep. Now that Ning Er had awakened her divine body and comprehended the Tao laws, it was time to let her out and have some actual combat. Otherwise, no matter how talented she was or how bad her temperament was, she would only be a Qin Chu in the end. If you can't distinguish between good and evil on the path of immortality, then kill everything you see and experience. Only then would you not be reduced to a chess piece. Who was innocent on this path? Looking at the changes of heaven and earth, and the ages since ancient times, immortals, demons, and ghosts were all fighting for fortune and hegemony in the universe. If you don't want to turn into dust, you can only kill all enemies, stand at the top of the world, be worshipped by all living things, and be worshipped by all living things. In this way, who would care about how many wronged souls and dead bodies you stepped on? Chapter 696. Who's a good person? Ning Er pondered for a moment. Her bright eyes looked at the two sides fighting. Suddenly, a bright smile bloomed on her face. Whoever Big Brother says is a good person is a good person. Ning Er didn't lie to himself about this. Originally, her experience could be said to be miserable. In her eyes, there was no such thing as good or evil in this world. The so-called good did not give her hope when she was in despair. Only Big Brother Ling Xiao gave her a new life and warmth. Moreover, with such a good ancestor like Feng Ling, Ning Er's heart was filled with all kinds of twisted and evil thoughts. Oh! Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the girl in front of him with some surprise. Not bad, little cutie. Your awareness is much better than Phoenix Rouge's. Then Ning Er, do you dare to kill? With Ning Er's talent, her future achievements might be much higher than Han Qingqiu, Lin Meng, and the others. Killing must be cultivated from a young age. Otherwise, no matter how talented you are, if you have a soft heart, you will be a burden. I'm a villain. Those who follow me should be villains. Even if they don't rebel now, it's fine. They will rebel sooner or later. What? They won't rebel sooner or later? Then I'll kill them and raise another batch. Even someone as strong as the Sky Demon has 9 generals, 7 kings, and 4 venerables following him. The path to immortality is vast and endless and full of dangers. Even if Ling Xiao has the Sky Demon's body, one person's strength is limited. What he wants is not just followers, but absolute loyalty that can grow with him. Then, one day, when he steps into the 9 heavens, he won't kill immortals alone. I dare. Ning Er's face was pale, but her eyes were filled with determination. Little ancestor Feng Ling's words were still in her ears. If she does not want to be abandoned by Big Brother, then she must be useful to him. If Big Brother wants me to kill, then I will kill. What's the big deal? Okay. Then let's compete and see who can kill more. Ling Xiao smiled. Demonic intent swirled around the demonic blade in his hand, hiding its shape. Okay. Ning Er gently nodded. Gritting her teeth, she brandished her golden halberd and charged into the crowd. At this moment, Ling Xiao could clearly feel her nervousness. But people had to experience it for the first time, right? Buzz! The ear-piercing sound of a blade suddenly resounded, and Ling Xiao's eyes no longer had a trace of warmth. At this moment, he was not worried about Ning Er's safety. Emperor God Xianxian was currently being held back by Xiong Huan and the others. The remaining god kings and god marquises were also exhausted. With Ning Er's strength, there was no danger in this chaotic situation. As the two figures flashed out, the immortal profound disciples who were originally at a disadvantage found it even more difficult to resist. The moment Ling Xiao brandished his demonic saber, countless disciples of the celestial sect died under his saber. Even their flesh, blood, and spiritual souls were absorbed by the demonic saber. Ning Er was even more direct. What she had comprehended was the Tao of strength. Coupled with the divine might of the heavy halberd in her hand, every time she smashed down, no matter what realm the person in front of her was at, whether they were holding a divine artifact or a Tao artifact, they would instantly shatter and turn into a pile of flesh and blood. In the celestial mystic sect, spiritual power shook. Countless spirit treasures collided, rippling out thousands of blood chi. However, the current celestial sect disciples were all convinced by Holy Sun Ling Zhao's righteousness. Even if they died, no one escaped. Finally, the world gradually quieted down. Only Helian Shan and several celestial sect god emperors were left standing in the void. They looked at the sea of blood below their feet in despair, and there was a trace of loneliness between their brows. It seemed that the celestial mystic sect was going to be destroyed today. However, Helian Shan could not understand why the demon sect, which had been silent for hundreds of years, would choose to act now. The first divine envoy was in southern border. Were they not afraid of the saint's revenge? Evil demon! Since you are courting death, I will kill all of you today even if I die. Helian Shan screamed in despair. His old face was ferocious. Then, a golden formation gradually took shape above his head. Tao runes were outlined on it, and immortal intent flowed. It turned into a golden cauldron that stood in the sky. However, Helian Shan's face was already extremely pale. It was obvious that he was powerless. Golden light fell from the sky like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens. Xiong Huan and Gu Zhen stepped forward and stood proudly in front of everyone. Demonic shadows stood behind them, supporting the world. Elders, lend me a hand! Helian Shan shouted angrily. The remaining 3 peak masters and Feng Yuanyang did not hesitate. They gathered all their spiritual energy and poured it into the formation. Boom! Boom! A loud sound echoed from the sky. At this moment, everyone felt as if a vast ocean was roaring above their heads. It turned into a huge wave that poured down. The dazzling golden light was like a tidal wave, covering the entire void. Wherever the golden wave passed, the void shattered into pieces. One of the sea race god emperors was unwilling to give up. He struck out with his palm. Between heaven and earth, a 1,000-foot-tall palm print suddenly appeared and blocked Jin Tao with the momentum of lifting the heavens. In the next instant, the sea race god emperor's expression changed drastically. He felt an extremely terrifying divine power suppressing his bones and meridians. As for his body, it actually shattered and instantly disappeared without a trace. You overestimate yourself! Helian Shan's eyes were cold as he looked at the thousands of demonic shadows below. If he was at his peak, the immortal mystic sect might not lose this battle. However, he felt as if there was a pair of demonic eyes watching him from the void. It was pushing him and the entire immortal mystic sect to the edge of destruction. This feeling was illusory, but it was real and clear. Humph! Helian Shan, do you really think you're invincible? Gu Zhen's eyes narrowed slightly. He sneered. The blood shadow around him suddenly floated into the air and turned into a sea of blood that charged toward the golden wave. Beside him, Xiong Huan also punched out, shattering the void and suppressing the mountains and seas. Countless strange phenomena appeared in the air within a radius of 10,000 miles. Everyone heard the roars of thousands of demons. It was terrifying. Hua Yoji, Xing Shen, and the 6 sea race emperors took out their spiritual treasures and used their strongest attacks against the golden light above their heads. Countless destructive attacks collided in midair. In an instant, the entire immortal mystic mountain crumbled into countless cracks, and the ancient forest shrine turned into ashes. Even though Helion Shan was an 8th-grade god emperor, and was the strongest here, and had the protection of the divine array, he still spat out blood and almost flew out when the attacks collided. Meanwhile, the rest of the peak masters of the god monarch realm began to tremble as their auras weakened. 2 of them even had their arms shattered, revealing their white bones. Even the many devil sect disciples in the mountain were bleeding from their 7 orifices under the residual power and fell to the ground dead. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly. He took a step forward and stood on top of the sky. At this moment, his eyes were especially clear and seemed to have a celestial charm. However, the demonic saber in his hand emitted an extreme demonic intent that shook the heavens and earth. Helion Shan raised his head and looked at the demonic shadow in front of him in fear. At this moment, although Ling Zhao's body was covered by demonic light, Helion Shan felt that this figure was somewhat familiar. 9 Styles of the Immemorial, 2nd Style, Evil God. Chapter 697. A low shout that seemed to have penetrated through the ages resounded through the void. Everyone only saw the figure that was surrounded by demonic aura suddenly raise the demonic blade in his hand and gently swing it towards the 5 emperors of the immortal mystic sect. Heaven and earth seemed to have sunk into eternal darkness. The blue sky was no longer there, and the bright sun was no longer shining. Even the golden radiance of the divine formation dimmed in the blink of an eye. Everyone could faintly feel that there was a vast and shocking power awakening within the demonic aura. It had been washed away and was unparalleled since ancient times. Gradually, a demonic figure that could suppress the entire universe appeared out of thin air. It looked down on all living beings and covered the entire universe. Then, under countless shocked gazes, the blade fell and shattered the firmament within 10,000 miles. The entire immortal mystic mountain seemed to be unable to withstand the might of the blade, and suddenly shattered. Helion Shan and the others finally showed fear on their faces as they looked at the terrifying blade light that fell like a god. How is this possible? What kind of demonic might is this? A blade that turned into a demon and suppressed 5 emperors? At this moment, no matter if it was the experts of the immortal mystic sect or the demonic sect, their eyes flashed with fear that came from the depths of their hearts. Even Gu Zhen and Sha Yun, who were 7th-grade divine emperors, were shocked and had an indescribable fear. Helion Shan and the others might not know Ling Zhao's identity, but they did. A 17-year-old youth could actually produce such a terrifying blade light. Furthermore, not to mention that Helion Shan and the others were already seriously injured and were being restrained by Xiong Huan and the others. Even if Gu Zhen was at his peak, he was not sure if he could survive under this blade light. The 9 immemorial moves were originally the moves of the Heaven Punishing move. It was called the immemorial, Heaven Punishing move. Even the 4 gods could not withstand its might, let alone the mortals of the lower realm. The evil god blade light pierced through heaven and earth and cleared the divine light. Finally, under the shocked and fearful gazes of the people on the mountain peak, it landed on Helion Shan and the others. In a breath's time, the flesh of the 5 great divine emperors withered and fell from the sky. Even their divine souls turned into thousands of divine lights and disappeared into nothingness under the blade intent. At the same time, Ling Zhao's soul palace suddenly rose by several hundred zhang. Tribulation clouds fell from the sky and covered the sky. The entire immortal mystic mountain instantly turned dark and gloomy. Ling Xiao raised his head to look at the falling divine lightning. His expression remained calm. 8th stage God Emperor Divine Soul Realm. With his current strength, if he were to unleash his full power, it would be difficult for ordinary God Emperors to be his match. Boom boom! The endless thunder waterfall was like an inverted Milky Way, washing away all the blood qi lingering in the mountains. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the celestial-like figure standing in the sea of lightning. Other than respect, there was nothing else on their faces. He had killed 5 Thearchs with 1 slash. If news of this were to spread, the entire Xingzhou would descend into chaos. Leave no one alive. In the end, the lightning waterfall dispersed, and the white-clothed youth descended from the sky, exuding a celestial aura. Around him, the demonic will was no longer there. Divine radiance shot into the heavens, making him look like a young immortal. However, at this moment, the words that came out of his mouth sent chills down everyone's spines. "Brother!" Ning Er's figure flew down from the sky and stood beside Ling Xiao. The golden halberd in his hand was stained with blood and emitted a different kind of golden light. "Let's go." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and put Ning Er back into the realm. Then, he lifted his foot and walked towards the back of the palace. There, Ling Tian and Qin Chu were already anxious. If Xiao Po and Han Qin Qiu hadn't stopped them, they would have run to the mountain peak to kill the enemy. "If you stop me again, don't blame me for being impolite." Ling Tian frowned slightly. Sword will circulated around his body, and the space 3 feet around him was filled with a biting cold spiritual aura. There was an extreme Tao of slaughter that evolved into endless avatars, as if it was going to punish heaven and earth. Damn it! If Hua Hua and Han Qin Qiu weren't his brother's women, he would have drawn his sword and killed them. He could feel the fluctuations outside the palace very clearly. There must be an earth-shattering battle there. Would his brother be in danger? Who dares to be so impudent in the celestial mystic sect? No. I have to find my brother. I won't allow anyone to hurt my brother. Oh? How do you want to be impolite? Without master's orders, no one is allowed to leave the palace. Otherwise, I don't mind letting him taste some pain. Xiao Pa snorted coldly. His small eyes narrowed into slits. Tao will also spread around his body, and time seemed to have stopped at this moment. He didn't like Ling Tian's arrogance. Or rather, he was worried that Ling Tian would steal his position by his master's side. Before master, he kept a low profile. Now that master isn't here, can't I act cool? A deity overlord ant, ha ha ha. Humph. Ling Tian snorted and unsheathed immortal execution. A loud and clear sword cry suddenly resounded, and the entire hall was instantly filled with sword intent. However, just as Xiao Po's eyes were filled with disdain and his figure was about to disappear, a white figure suddenly floated down from the void, blocking the two of them. "Brother? Master!" Xiao Po and Ling Tian's faces flashed with joy. The spiritual aura around them dissipated, and they returned to their peaceful appearance. "Let's leave this place first," Ling Xiao said indifferently. Then, he turned into a graceful swan and flew toward the distant mountains. Behind him, the others were puzzled, but they didn't dare to ask. They followed closely behind. It wasn't until they left the immortal mystic sect's territory that Ling Xiao descended from the sky and stood in front of an ancient forest. "Brother, what happened?" Ling Tian frowned slightly, but the worry on his face dissipated. No matter what happened, as long as his brother was fine, even if the immortal mystic sect was destroyed, it had nothing to do with him. The sea race joined forces with the demon sect and destroyed the immortal mystic sect. Ling Xiao sighed and turned to look at Qin Chu. In the group, he was the only outsider. It was time to let this leak out and use it for the last time. "Young Master Qin." "Saint." Qin Chu's expression changed. He looked up at Ling Xiao with a surprised expression. "Now that the immortal mystic sect is destroyed, I'm afraid the southern border will be completely shaken. I will go deep into the sea to investigate the alliance between the sea race and the demon sect. I'm willing to follow the saint and eliminate the evil. To prove the name of the demon sect." Qin Chu's expression changed. He straightened his body, and even his aura turned cold. However, the moment he finished speaking, he clearly felt that Xiao Po, Ling Tian, Han Qingqiu, and the others were looking at him with hostility. What the f***ck? Did I say something wrong? Brother Qin's ambition is truly admirable. However, my identity is special. If Brother Qin follows me, you won't be able to use it to your fullest potential. How about this? Let's part ways here and meet in the depths of the sea. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a hint of evil. Brother Qin, since you want to prove the name of the demon sect, you have to let the world know that you are the demon sect. Huh. Qin Chu's eyes narrowed. Then, he seemed to understand. That's right. Now, the demon sect of the southern border has joined forces with the sea race and slaughtered the common people. If I want to prove the name of the demon sect, I have to let the world know that I am also a demon, but not an evil one. However, the world is ignorant. Before I prove the name of the demon sect, if I travel with the saint, won't I tarnish your reputation? Saint, you mean, the sea race is rampant and destroyed my immortal mystic sect. If we can take revenge perhaps, Saint? I understand. Before Ling Xiao could finish speaking, the confusion in Qin Chu's eyes dissipated and turned into a piercing coldness. This leak's comprehension is so high now that he even knows how to answer first. Chapter 698. Brother Qin, now that we are all in the sea, about my identity. Ling Xiao wanted to say something but stopped. Qin Chu nodded and smiled. Don't worry, Saint. Chu knows what to do. According to Qin Chu's thoughts, Ling Xiao was the saint and was the enemy of demons. If the world knew that he was related to the saint, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. As long as he killed the sea race and took revenge for the immortal mystic sect, he would be respected by the world even if he was a demon. This way, he could legitimately stand side by side with the Holy Sun, and no one would criticize him anymore. But now, he was not worthy. The sea is vast. This trip will be dangerous. Brother Qin, take care. Ling Zhao's tone had a rare trace of worry, and Qin Chu's eyes almost teared up. Brother Qin? This name is very intimate, right? Saint, is this considered caring for me? It's very sudden. But there are things that we cultivators should do and things that we shouldn't do. Now that the sea race is cruel and slaughtering the world, it's time to show our true skills. This way we won't let down the world, won't let down. Young master's wish. To prove the name of the demon, I will use demonic techniques to kill the sea race. This way, the world should know that demons may not be a disaster, but they can protect the world. First, that year, I kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times, serving tea and acknowledging my master. Second, today, the sky is clear and the sun is bright. I bid farewell to young master. There were tears in his eyes, stubbornness in his heart, and a smile at the corner of his mouth. He had no regrets and no fear. Saint Chu is leaving. Qin Chu bowed deeply and didn't get up for a long time. Finally, he turned and flew into the distance. They hadn't parted yet, but he was already looking forward to meeting again. When Qin Chu's figure disappeared, Ling Zhao's expression gradually turned cold. With this chess piece, the situation in the southern border would definitely change again. The demon sect attacked the immortal sect and returned in defeat. The immortal sect slaughtered the sea race in the battle for the heavenly lake. In the end, the demons and the sea race joined forces to destroy the immortal sect. But at this time, demons appeared in the sea and killed the sea race's geniuses. Confusing or not? Confusing or not? If this chess game wasn't set up by Ling Xiao, even he would feel it was complicated. What the hell was going on? Why did these people suddenly kill indiscriminately? Moreover, both the Ocean Emperor and the first divine envoy were scheming people. The more complicated the situation was, the easier it was to arouse their suspicion. In particular, the appearance of the ancient heavenly crocodile clan would make people's imagination run wild. However, no matter how they guessed, They would never have thought that these layers of fog were actually set up by Ling Xiao alone. After all the people who knew his name had died in Xuanxi Mountain. Even if a few escaped, such as Phoenix Rouge and Qin Chu, do you think they would dare to appear in front of the first oracle? Following this, Ling Xiao only needed to watch Qin Chu testify for the devil, bring disaster to the Sea tribe, and attract the attention of the first divine envoy and the Emperor of the Sea. Then, taking advantage of the chaos, they could go deep into the sea, find traces of Crocodile Jean, and search for opportunities. As for Qin Chu's safety, with his status, Ling Xiao did not believe that there were no experts protecting him. Although the 6 great devils were not as strong as the first divine envoy, since the 6 of them could escape from the divine master, how could they not protect their only disciple? Moreover, Qin Chu's luck had not run out and would not die so easily. 6 seniors, are you still hesitating whether to take the risk and fight the first divine envoy? If Qin Chu died in the hands of the first divine envoy, would you still hesitate? Whoosh! In the distant void, a demonic shadow suddenly appeared. Immediately after, Xiong Huan, Gu Zhen, and the others descended from the sky and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Master! The foundation of the immortal mystic sect and the dragon vein in the mountain. Xiong Huan handed over a Qianquan bag with both hands. Ling Xiao just nodded indifferently and said in a cold tone, Gu Zhen, lead the demon sect and hibernate for a while. When the devil traces appear in the sea, we will act according to plan. Yes, Master. Gu Zhen bowed and disappeared on the spot. Now, Chen Qinshan had already cultivated the forbidden technique of the Thousand Ghost Mountain, the blood demon swallowing sky technique. What surprised Gu Zhen was that this seemingly mediocre youth was actually extremely talented in the path of demonic arts. In just a few days, he broke through to the immortal general realm. Moreover, what surprised Gu Zhen even more was that the Gone Sky Demon Sect's inheritance statue awakened on the day Chen Qinshan broke through. Gu Zhen did not know what kind of fortune Chen Qinshan had obtained from the statue's consciousness. However, inexplicably, Gu Zhen had a vague feeling that this young man would become the new hope of the Gone Sky sect. Rumor had it that the first sect master of the Gone Sky Divine sect was the most powerful person in Nanjiang and had once competed with thousands of races in the sea. The cultivation technique that this person cultivated was said to come from the upper realm and was extremely evil. However, 1,000 years ago, the immortals and demons were massacred. In the end, Sect Master Gon Tian disappeared for no reason and the Gone Sky Divine sect gradually declined. However, on that day, the Sect Master statue, which had always been regarded as a divine statue by the demon sect disciples, had a soul consciousness descend. This made people speculate that Sect Master Gon Tian had really died or had he ascended to the upper realm. Regardless, Chen Qinshan, this young disciple of the immortal sect, was probably going to soar into the sky this time. The weaker the model, the higher the achievement. This was an eternal law. Let's go. Ling Xiao turned his head and glanced at the sacred mountain of Nanjiang that had long collapsed. He waved his hand and sent everyone, including the 6 oceanic race emperors, into his realm. This is when everyone appeared in front of the heavenly palace. Ling Tian, Yi Suner and Lin Meng were stunned. They looked at the palace in front of them in disbelief. They had not expected Ling Xiao to have such a foundation in just half a year. Especially now, the spiritual qi in this realm was dozens of times denser than that of an ordinary immortal land ancient sect. Even the order of time in this realm faintly revealed its mysteries. Brother, where is this place? This is my realm and also where my forces are. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and waved at Xing Shen and the others. Bring the oceanic race to the lake. Yes, Master. The god emperors immediately bowed and turned to leave. Ling Xiao opened his Qianquan bag and released the dragon vein that was suppressed by Xiong Huan. Buzz. Between heaven and earth, there was suddenly a vast and mighty spiritual chi. However, before the dragon vein could escape, a golden array suddenly appeared in the void. Boundless divine power came crashing down and sucked him in. Brother's force? Ling Tian's eyes flashed with shock. Then, his face suddenly bloomed with a trace of brilliance. Brother, you're awesome. You came from Sect Master Taishan, right? Ling Xiao smiled gently and looked at Lin Meng. The latter blushed and nodded slightly. Among Ling Xiao's many women, Lin Meng's personality was the most gentle and quiet. She did not fight or snatch. She was always obedient. Oh, by the way, Sect Master also asked me to bring you a gift. Ling Xiao seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He clenched his hand, and a divine cauldron suddenly appeared and quietly stood in front of Ling Xiao. When he felt the fluctuations in the cauldron, Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Chapter 699. Thank you, Sect Master. Ling Xiao reached out and put the cauldron into his ring. Qingqiu Huahua, bring them around this region and meet Xiao Beifa, Elixir Emperor, and the others. I'll be back soon. Yes, young master. Han Qingqiu and Huahua bowed. Ling Xiao seemed to have thought of something. Oh, go and see which of the Sea Clan emperors you want to eat. We'll have seafood tonight. Seafood? Everyone looked at each other, but Ling Xiao's figure had already disappeared on the spot. On the 5th level of the Glaze Ancient Pagoda, Ling Xiao stared at the cauldron in his hand. His eyes flashed with coldness. From the moment Ling Tian took out this cauldron, he felt an extremely familiar fluctuation. It was the same as when the 4th Divine Envoy was suppressed by the Sect Master and sealed in the cauldron. It was obvious that the 3rd Divine Envoy in the eastern border was most likely trapped in the cauldron. Xiong Huan's figure appeared behind Ling Xiao. There was no aura around him. He was like a statue. Although Ling Xiao's divine spirit was now at the 8th stage, he still had to be careful when dealing with the divine envoy's divine spirit. Buzz. As the spiritual light in his hand flashed, the seal in the cauldron suddenly disappeared. Then, a bright soul broke out of the cauldron and shouted, Sect Master Taishan, how dare you! However, before his voice fell, the slightly illusory face suddenly became sluggish. In particular, the white-clothed figure in front of him caused his eyes to gradually fill with excitement. What a chaotic world, immortal! This young man's divine spirit was almost written on his face. Could it be that he was the one who saved me from the hands of Lord Taishan? But it shouldn't be. Although this young man had divine spirit, he was at most 17 or 18 years old. How could he be a match for Sect Master Taishan? Was it the puppet behind him? With the 3rd Divine Envoy's divine spirit, he could easily sense that there was no vitality in Xiong Huan's body. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was a puppet. However, strangely, the 3rd Divine Emissary had a feeling that even if he, a rank 8 martial emperor, was at his peak, he might not be a match for the battle puppet. Little fellow Taoist, who are you? Where is this place? The 3rd Divine Emissary was called Zhi Chou. He was an 8th stage God Emperor, and was only one step away from the 9th stage. Among the 4 divine envoys of the sacred sect, the 1st divine envoy Dugu Yunjin and the 2nd divine envoy Luan Zhu were both at level 9. The 3rd and 4th divine emissaries had grade 8 cultivation and were considered top-notch individuals in the entire Xingzhou region. Originally, the 3rd divine envoy had gone to the eastern border under the orders of the divine master to investigate the whereabouts of the person who had comprehended the Tao law of extreme ice. Needless to say, after a month of investigation, he really found a trace of clues. However, right when he followed Yi Qingchan's footsteps and arrived at the foot of the Tao mountain, he saw a palm descend from the sky, and it actually didn't give him the slightest chance to open his mouth before it smashed his body into pieces. F*CK. It was not that Ji Cho did not know of Lord Taishuan's enmity towards the Holy Church. However, all these years, Lord Taishan had been living in seclusion and had never shown any ambition to fight for hegemony. In Ji Chao's eyes, this forbearance was a form of fear towards the Holy Church. Of course, Lord Taishan had killed an elder of the Holy Church and became famous in the Xingzhou region because of that. However, Ji Cho really did not expect Lord Taishuan's strength to be so terrifying. The palm that covered the sky was filled with thousands of Taoist rhymes and was like a heavenly punishment. No matter how hard he tried, he could not resist it for even a moment. That was not all. Lord Taishan destroyed his physical body but did not erase his spirit. Instead, he was imprisoned in the cauldron. Originally, Ji Cho thought that this old thing must be plotting something. However, in the end, he never saw Lord Taishan again. Until today, when he felt that the seal had loosened, he took the opportunity to escape and see the white-robed man in front of him. How dare you! However, right when Ji Cho was pondering in his heart and guessing in his heart, the young man before him suddenly shouted with a grim voice, and it almost scared his soul out of his body. There are only two of us here. Do you have to shout so fiercely? I thought that Lord Taishan, that old thing, had come. Are you blind? Why don't you kneel when you see me? Ling Xiao held the token in one hand and raised it in front of him. Ji Chao's expression trembled. When he saw the divine token in front of him emitting golden light, he instinctively prostrated himself on the ground. Greetings, eh? That's not right. Since when did my holy church have such a rule that I have to kneel when I see the saint? In the past few days, Ji Cho had been frightened too much. As a result, when Ling Xiao shouted just now, he, an 8th-grade divine emperor, almost lost his mind. You are the saint of my holy church? Ji Cho slowly got up with a guarded expression. He naturally knew the name of the saint. However, in the entire holy church, other than the Divine Master, no one knew what the saint looked like. However, when he saw the youth's immortal charm, he felt that it was unnecessary to ask. In the entire Xingzhou, other than the saint of the Holy Church, who else deserved to be called immortal? Third Divine Envoy, have you found the person? Ling Zhao's eyes were clear and his tone was low and calm. It was as if he did not take the Divine Envoy seriously at all. The saint of the Holy Church had a respectable status and a mysterious origin. He was the direct disciple of the Divine Master and the next leader of the Holy Church. The more indifferent he appeared, the less Ji Cho would suspect his identity. Of course, Ling Xiao did not have any special hobby at this time to play role-play with Ji Cho. It was just that the Divine Master was too much of a dog. As long as it was an expert of the Holy Church, their soul sea would be covered with a restriction. It was the kind of restriction that would kill them with one touch. If he wanted to find out about the Divine Master's identity and the changes that happened in the Holy Church 300 years ago, he had to ask these divine envoys. When he killed Partridge Gully, the latter's divine soul shattered. Although he saw some memories, they were fragmented and extremely limited. So this time, he decided to change his approach. Otherwise, the value of the third divine envoy would at most be a tonic. Moreover, ever since Ling Xiao guessed Yi Qingchan's identity, he deduced that the reason why the Divine Master suddenly handed over the Holy Church's affairs to Yi Qingchan was most likely related to Yi Qingchan's entry into the central border. However, if that was the case, why did the Divine Master not recall the 4 great divine envoys but let them continue to stay in the 4 borders? Ling Xiao thought for a long time and could only think of 2 possibilities. One was that the Divine Master did not see Yi Qingchan. The other was that the Divine Master did not want them to return to the Holy Church at this time. In other words, what he was doing now was either dangerous or shady. Saint, I've already found a trace of it. However, before I could find that person, he was killed by Taoist Master Taishan. Saint, I suspect that, The person mentioned by the Divine Master is now hiding in Taishan Daoist Palace. Ji Chao's expression was solemn, and there was a hint of coldness between his brows. On the other hand, Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and asked softly, "Do you know who the calamity that the Divine Master mentioned is?" Since the great demon knew the name of Yi Qinchan, it was impossible that the divine envoys of the Holy Church did not know. However, Ling Xiao was still not sure whether these powerful cultivators of the Holy Church submitted to the Divine Master's identity or to the current Divine Master. "Who is it?" Ji Chou was stunned, and there was a trace of doubt in his heart. "Me. If I knew who this calamity was, why would I still need to find a hammer? Wouldn't it be better to just find this person and kill him? What did the saint mean by this?" Chapter 700. Her name is Yi Qinchan. Ling Xiao said calmly, but Ji Chao's expression suddenly turned dull. What? At this moment, the panic in Ji Chao's eyes could not be concealed, and the doubts in Ling Xiao's heart dissipated. Obviously, these oracles really did not know the purpose of this trip. Moreover, the name Yi Qinchan must have a deeper meaning to them. Although he already had his guesses before, guesses were still guesses. Now, he had to verify his guesses before he could decide on the deployment for the future. Yi Qinchan. Yi Qinchan. How can there be such a coincidence? No wonder the Divine Master sent us to the four borders to kill all the evildoers who have comprehended the power of ice. If she is still alive, does Lord Ji know the origin of Yi Qinchan? Ling Xiao's eyes were playful, and there was a hint of doubt in his tone. Ji Chou smiled bitterly and shook his head, his eyes showing the vicissitudes of life. "Holy Son, you may not know, but the name Yi Qinchan is unfamiliar even to the people of the saint. Only the elders and oracles know some secret. This name is the taboo name of the previous Divine Master of the saint, Lord Yi." The previous Divine Master? Lord Ji, how did she fall? As expected. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. Now, it seemed that Yi Qinchan was indeed the previous Divine Master. But who was the one who killed her? Who was the current Divine Master? It is normal that you do not know what happened 300 years ago. Yi Qinchan is a mysterious person. Even we have only seen her once, and it was her back. 300 years ago, when the Sky Demon appeared, she only appeared once on the mountain peak and then disappeared without a trace. She said that she would personally track down the Sky Demon and asked us to protect the sacred mountain. Ji Chao's eyes seemed to be reminiscing, especially when he mentioned the Sky Demon. There was an inexplicable panic in his eyes. Later on, when the Divine Master descended from the sky, we found out that Yi Qinchan had actually colluded with demons and was killed by the Divine Master. He colluded with demons and was killed by the Divine Master. Ling Xiao nodded. He had heard of this rumor a long time ago. However, this collusion with the devil, was it with the great devil Wenryu or with the heavenly devil? However, at this time, Ling Xiao also understood how Wenryu, the dignified Guqin devil, was involved with Yi Qinchan. Perhaps Yi Qinchan had wandered the four borders in search of the Sky Demon. She had accidentally encountered Wenryu and the others and wanted to slay the demon. However, Ling Xiao could not guess why she did not attack the 7 demons in the end. Of course, the woman of destiny, no matter how cold her appearance was definitely not someone who would kill indiscriminately. The settings couldn't be broken. Furthermore, it was no wonder that Guguli was not too shocked when he saw Yi Qinchan. It turned out that even the 4 divine messengers had never seen Lord Ye's true appearance. "So, you all believe that Yi Qinchan colluded with demons?" Ling Xiao's eyes flickered with a trace of doubt. However, Ji Chou frowned slightly. Was the saint questioning the Divine Master? Or was he just curious? "Saint, you don't know. The duty of the Holy Church is to protect the common people. However, the Divine Master of the Holy Church was not from this world. They all came from the upper world. That's why they could step out of the shackles of heaven and earth, and become the sole ruler of heaven and earth. Although Ji-Cho was puzzled, he did not think too much about it. After all, the saint's divine order could not be faked. Similarly, his immortal aura could not be faked. The saint's identity was even more mysterious and honorable. He most likely came from the upper world. Currently, he should be around 18 years old. Yes, he should be at the rebellious stage. Upper world. Ling Xiao shook his head. If the Divine Master came from the upper world, why did he have to be so secretive and deliberately smear Yi Qingchan's reputation? Ling Xiao could feel the hatred that the remnant soul in the latter's soul sea had for the sky demon. Therefore, she would not collude with demons and be killed by the Foliaceae. As for the Zither demon, Wenruyu, why would the Foliaceae be so angry? Therefore, the Divine Master might have hidden a great secret from the entire Holy Church, or even the Xingzhou. That's right. The Xingzhou is just a small piece of heaven and earth. It's just that the spiritual energy in this world is lacking. No one can step out of the shackles and ascend to the upper world with their own strength. Therefore, Ji-Cho sighed softly. He looked at Ling Xiao with reverence. However, I see that the saint has an immortal aura and has received the Divine Master's true teachings. Perhaps in the future, the saint can break the shackles and achieve immortality. Oh, I see. Does Divine Messenger Ji know the identity of the first Divine Messenger? Lord Dugu? Lord Dugu is also a divine dragon among men. He travels the four borders all year round and only takes orders from the Divine Master. As for his identity, we don't know. Ji-Cho answered truthfully, but the doubt in his eyes grew stronger. Why were the saint's questions so strange? It seemed like the enemy was trying to find out information about them. Takes orders from the Divine Master alone? Are there no connections between the two of you? The four divine messengers all act alone. I see. Ling Xiao had a playful smile on his face as he nodded slowly. It seemed that not only was the Divine Master strange, but the first Divine Messenger was also very strange. It was no secret that the Holy Church was looking for Tao Law evildoers. The training and selection and guidance to the upper world were just a pretense deliberately spread by the Divine Master. The tragedy of the Abysmal Clan was sufficient to prove that the Divine Master was practicing sorcery. The Sky Demon Scripture? Interesting. However, if the Divine Master was not someone from the upper world, how did he step out of the shackles and become the Venerable State? In the end, Ling Xiao did not say anything more. A black moon suddenly appeared in his eyes. Before Ji-Cho could react, he directly absorbed him into his sea of soul. No matter what kind of secret the Divine Master was hiding, it seemed that the third Divine Messenger was just a chess piece that was kept in the dark. If he wanted to find the truth and confirm his guess, he had to start with the first Divine Messenger. As for where the Divine Master went, perhaps only Meng Yuan, the saintess of the Holy Church, knew. After all, the Divine Order of Partridge Gully had always been in Ling Xiao's hands. He had never received any news from the Divine Master. Saint, where is this place? Ji-Chao's limbs were cold in his sea of soul. Especially the terrifying pitch-black soul palace in front of him and the black demonic sun floating above the soul palace. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed a little strange. It seemed that he had discovered something extraordinary? Could it be that this mysterious holy sun was actually a demon? Divine Messenger Ji, you have all been deceived by the Divine Master. Ling Xiao's figure appeared in the void. Now that Ji-Cho was in his sea of soul, he was like a turtle in a jar, no longer a threat. Deceived by the Divine Master? You? How dare you? Ji-Cho was stunned and his tone was inexplicably panicked. The Divine Master of the Holy Church was the faith of the common people. He stood at the top of the world and controlled the life and death of all living things. How could an immortal deceive others? If he wanted to kill someone, heaven and earth would not stop him. Why would he need to use such a despicable trick? Yi Qingqian did not collude with the demon. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, but Ji Chao's eyes were piercingly cold. You are talking nonsense. How could a mere brat know what happened 300 years ago? I indeed do not know what happened 300 years ago, but I am the demon that the divine messenger spoke of. Ling Xiao smiled coldly. A demonic shadow suddenly appeared behind him. The demonic sun floating above the Soul Palace bloomed with boundless demonic will. Ji Chao's expression was dull and there was fear in his eyes. I am a prophet? Damn it, it felt like I was going to be stabbed. Chapter 701. The realm was full of spiritual aura. The 12 dragon veins were all gathered in one realm. Such a method could be said to be omnipotent. The 9 dragons' heaven prison formation was originally a product of the system. Moreover, Eni, the overlord of the ancient sea region, was kind enough to turn his body into a spiritual stone to help. Therefore, the spiritual energy contained in this realm was already incomparable to that of ordinary ancient sections. In the entire Shringzhou, even in the upper world, there was no place that could compare to this place. Ling Tian and the other 2 stood side by side beside Han Qingqiu and Huahua in the Sky Palace. They had already seen Xiao Beifa, the Pill Emperor, and the others. They were naturally extremely fearful and respectful of Ling Tian's identity. However, there was no trace of joy in Ling Tian's eyes. Instead, there was some sadness, especially the strength of Xiao Beifa and the others, which made him feel a sense of defeat. Originally, he went into seclusion in the Path of Swords, cultivated bitterly for half a year, and comprehended the Tao in a day. It was all to protect his brother and their brotherhood. However, it seemed like he was thinking too much. With the power in his brother's hands, not to mention ordinary sects, even Ling people would be easily destroyed. Moreover, Ling Zhao's slash that day was casual, but the heavenly might contained in the saber intent was bitingly cold and vast. It was far from what Ling Tian could resist. His ambition turned into smoke in the blink of an eye. It turned out that he was not the only one working hard in the past 6 months. Brother, I will continue to chase after your footsteps until one day I will finally defeat you in my hands. Is there an end to this realm? Ling Tian's eyes were cold as he looked into the distance. However, Huahua and Han Qingqiu were stunned and shook their heads slightly. This, we don't know. Oh, you guys go back. I'll take a walk alone. After saying that, Ling Tian took a step forward and turned into a sword light that soared into the sky. Vaguely, he seemed to feel that somewhere in this realm, something seemed to be calling out to him. It was illusory, but it disturbed his Tao heart. It was only when Ling Tian arrived in front of an ancient forest in the north that a trace of doubt flashed in his cold eyes. At this moment, he could feel that there seemed to be a slightly chaotic aura near Linshun. There seemed to be demonic aura and demonic aura alternately appearing. Finally, Ling Tian's figure descended from the sky and landed in the forest. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly focused. At that moment, a beautiful and graceful figure appeared before his eyes. Her clothes were disheveled and her fine black hair was disheveled. Demonic light enveloped her as if it was imprisoning her in this place. She had her eyes closed and there was a trace of sadness between her brows. Her long eyelashes were stained with tears. Even with Ling Tian's temperament, looking at the lady in front of him, he couldn't help but feel a tinge of heartache. Who was it that trapped her here like a demonic beast? Why did he use such a cruel method to humiliate her? As though she felt Ling Tian's aura, Meng Yuan's eyelashes trembled and a look of fear flashed across her face. Then, under Ling Tian's astonished gaze, she curled up into a ball like a frightened deer, trembling in fear. This scene caused Ling Tian's heart to tremble. How frightened must she have been to reveal such a hopeless and helpless expression? This is brother's territory, But I don't believe that brother is such a cruel person. Everyone knew that Ling Xiao was cruel and ruthless and would kill people at the slightest provocation. But only Ling Tian knew that under his brother's cold appearance, there was actually a warm and clean heart. Who are you? Why are you imprisoned here? Ling Tian's voice had a rare trace of gentleness. Who are you? Meng Yuan looked at him blankly and saw that the person who came was not Ling Xiao. Her originally dim eyes suddenly flashed with hope. Quick! Save me! I am the saintess of the Saints sect, and I was trapped here by a demon. Now that demon is most likely impersonating me to bring disaster to the world. Any later and the Xingzhou will be in chaos. Although, until now, she still didn't know where she was. It was not like the spiritual treasure space. The reason for that was because the spiritual energy there was simply too dense. Looking at the white-haired, black-robed young man in front of her and his sword intent, it was obvious that he was not from the demon sect. As long as she could escape from here, she must use the power of the entire sect to kill Ling Xiao. Saintess of the Saints sect? Ling Tian frowned slightly and seemed to be pondering. Trapped by a demon? Could it be that she was really imprisoned here by her brother? Now that the Saints sect was in control of the Xingzhou, her brother impersonated the Sky Demon to help him avoid disaster. If this saintess of the Saints sect knew about her brother's identity and was trapped here, her brother was merciful. Such a person should be killed. That's right. The appearance of the Sky Demon is a great calamity for the Xingzhou. Young master, save me and the Saints sect will definitely be grateful. Young master, hurry up and do it. Otherwise, when the Sky Demon returns, both of us will not be able to escape death. Meng Yuan clenched her teeth and said anxiously. But, just as she finished speaking, the young man in front of her suddenly shook his head. Although I don't know why my brother didn't kill you, but he is already merciful to you. Brother? Before the excitement on Meng Yuan's face disappeared, it completely froze. Then, her eyes suddenly widened. You are the younger brother of the Sky Demon? No. Ling Tian shook his head. A trace of doubt appeared in Meng Yuan's eyes, but a trace of hope reappeared. Ling Xiao is my brother, but he is not the Sky Demon. You were deceived by him. I saw it with my own eyes. He is the Sky Demon. Cruel. It can't be wrong. Young master, the Sky Demon is a common enemy of the Xingzhou. Once he grows up, he will be a disaster. Don't be a sinner who helps the demon because of your personal feelings. Meng Yuan's eyes were anxious, but she sighed deeply in her heart. As expected, the Sky Demon was very scheming. Even the people around him did not know his identity. In the future, the Xingzhou would really be played in the palm of his hand. Played? In the palm of his hand? Suddenly, Meng Yuan's cheeks flushed red, but the killing intent in her eyes became even colder. Cruel? A common enemy of the Xingzhou? Ling Tian suddenly laughed, but there was a cold aura around him. The sound of a sword suddenly resounded between heaven and earth, shaking the 9 heavens and frightening the mind. Young master, Meng Yuan panicked, not knowing what to say. Young master, even if you want to save me, you don't have to make such a big fuss, right? If we attract that demon here again, the two of us will probably lose our lives here. How can you say that about my warm brother? You don't even know what he is carrying, but you call him cruel? Even if he is cruel, it is all for me. Ling Tian raised his head and looked at Meng Yuan. His eyes, which were originally filled with a clear light, were suddenly filled with demonic intent. Even the sword insight that coiled around his body faintly turned black. Layer upon layer, vast and mighty, it transformed into a devilish radiance that shot through the sky and pierced through the sky. This is, at this moment, Meng Yuan's heart trembled. Apart from despair, there was also a trace of deep doubt in her eyes. How can this be? This demonic intent, how can it be? Could there be 2 Sky Demons in the Xingzhou? Chapter 702. Actually, you should thank my brother. After knowing his identity, you are the only outsider who is still alive. Ling Tian's face flashed with coldness as he unsheathed his ancient sword. Thousands of sword intents tore through heaven and earth. However, it was not piercingly cold. Instead, it contained a wisp of demonic intent that could shake the 9 heavens. A scarlet light flashed across the young man's eyes. Then, he walked toward Meng Yuan with the sword in his hand. So what if I wreak havoc in the Xingzhou? So what if the 9 heavens don't tolerate it? In order to prevent me from awakening the sky demon's body, my brother dug out my Dan Si and was cursed by the world. In order to hide my identity, he willingly became a demon and protected me. For 18 years, he has no regrets and has never blamed me. Cruel and tyrannical? Yes, this world is tyrannical to him. Why should he care about the common people? You want to kill him? Today I will kill you first and then your holy sect. I will make the Xingzhou respect him. Ling Tian's voice was filled with coldness, and Meng Yuan's face suddenly became lifeless. She was not afraid of death. She just did not expect that Ling Xiao would have such a gentle side behind his cruelty and despicableness. Was it all for her brother? For some reason, some of the persistence in Meng Yuan's heart seemed to have cracked. Originally, in her eyes, the sky demon was the most cold-blooded and cruel creature in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. He was supposed to be selfish and ruthless, slaughtering the common people in order to pursue his own path. But why did he suddenly become her brother, who had fallen for love and had no regrets? Beat. The Tao heart of the destined girl has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. In the sky above the ancient forest, Ling Xiao calmly looked at the scene below him. The wisp of divine consciousness that Ling Tian had sensed just now was naturally deliberately released by him. In this region, no one could escape from his divine consciousness. The reason Ling Xiao did this was to let Meng Yuan see a different side of him. This holy maiden had been immersed in the holy sect since she was young and had been influenced by the righteous path. Therefore, she made killing demons her mission and had no other distractions. In her eyes, demon was the most evil word in the world. These 2 words signified evil, cruelty, and would rather kill than let go. However, Ling Tian's arrival made Ling Xiao think of a better way to open the saint's heart. There must be something wrong with the Divine Master. Even Meng Yuan's background must be hidden. But before he could reveal all these secrets, he had to first weaken her obsession with the devil. In the future, she would truly realize that there were actually 2 sides to all living things in this world. As the saying goes, a flower blooms with 2 dimples, an immortal and a devil can think of it. What was the difference between submitting to an immortal or a devil? Die! As Ling Tian slashed out with his sword, the space around him began to ripple. The piercing cold light flickered with a black light. It was like a bloody wind blowing in front of the underworld as it fell towards Meng Yuan. At this moment, the saintess of the sacred sect had been imprisoned by Ling Xiao and had no room to struggle at all. Furthermore, with Ling Tian's current strength, even if Meng Yuan was at her peak, she might not be a match for him. Is it over? It's finally over. Meng Yuan slowly closed her eyes. She felt inexplicably tired. In just half a month, she went from being the most dazzling genius of the Xingzhou continent to being a devil prisoner and suffering all kinds of humiliation. If not for her duty, Meng Yuan would have wanted to die. She was only alive to find a chance to tell the world that Ling Xiao was the sky demon. But today, looking at the white-haired young man in front of her with no regrets in his eyes and hearing the undisguised affection in his words, Meng Yuan was shaken. Devils also had feelings. They were stubborn and deep, obscure and obscure. In fact, if Ling Tian did not say it himself, she would not believe that the Ling Xiao this young man mentioned was the same person as the Ling Xiao she saw. She was very tired. She had never felt so tired before. She wanted to die. She wanted to end everything. However, she was unwilling to do so. It was not that she was afraid of death. She just wanted to know what kind of devil Ling Xiao was. Why could a 17-year-old young man perfectly combine these two extreme images into one? Violent, despicable, toying with the common people. He was also willing to bear the sins of his loved ones. The world could not tolerate him. Which one was the real him? Or was there only absolute black and white in this world? Buzz! The ear-piercing sound of the sword stopped abruptly. Even the piercingly cold sword intent had dissipated at this moment. Meng Yuan opened her eyes in a daze. What she saw was a tall and thin figure. His white robe fluttered in the wind like an immortal. He stood there as if he was one with the world. The thousands of sword intents dissipated. The world suddenly quieted down. Even the breeze in the forest disappeared without a trace. The elegant young man became a deity in her eyes. If he was not a devil, then he was a good man. Brother? Ling Tian's expression also became dull. The ancient sword in his hand was only 3 feet away from Ling Xiao. Nonsense! Ling Xiao shouted coldly. Instantly, a trace of panic flashed in Ling Tian's eyes. He knew that his brother must have his reasons for not killing the saintess of the saint. However, he just could not stand these hypocritical righteous people. They kept saying that they should kill the devil, and that the 9 heavens could not tolerate them. Such people deserved to die. Brother, she hates you so much. Why don't you kill her? What if she spouts nonsense and reveals your identity? By then, how dangerous will you be? Ling Tian gritted his teeth. There was worry, confusion, and a trace of grievance in his eyes. How can you have the best of both worlds? Not letting down the people and not letting down the people? She is also a pitiful person. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked deeply at Meng Yuan, who was in a daze, and sighed softly. What a joke! Expose my identity? Then she must be able to leave this place first. Pitiful person? Ling Tian and Meng Yuan were stunned at the same time. Especially the latter, there was an indescribable uneasiness in her heart. In the past few days, Meng Yuan felt that there seemed to be a strange force in her body that was slowly awakening. This force was not spiritual energy. It was more like it came from the bloodline and soul. It made people feel terrified. Could it be that what the devil said was true? Shia was really not human? How can you have the best of both worlds? Not letting down the people and not letting down the people? So, he chose love and I chose the people? Suddenly, tears seemed to be surging in Meng Yuan's eyes. Let's go. Ling Xiao did not say anything. He lifted his leg and walked into the distance. Ling Tian only glared at Meng Yuan and said coldly, I don't know why my brother didn't kill you, but if you dare to humiliate him again, you won't be so lucky next time. As he said that, Ling Tian also disappeared from his original spot. In the ancient forest, there was silence. Only Meng Yuan's eyes were empty, as if she had lost something. What appeared in front of her was Ling Zhao's figure. The people and love? Could it be that I really misunderstood him? Brother, why didn't you let me kill her? Ling Tian stood beside Ling Xiao with hatred on his face. She is the saintess of the saint sect. Her body is sealed by the Divine Master. If I kill her now and disturb the Divine Master, it will affect my next plan. Ling Xiao did not hide the truth. After all, Ling Tian's submission was verified by the system. Moreover, this kid's performance just now could be said to be perfect. The more actors there were, the more realistic it would be. Otherwise, look at the dynasty conquest. Hundreds of people were waving their swords and killing each other. No matter how loud they shouted, it was still a bad film. But if tens of thousands of people were waving their swords, it would be praised as a magnificent masterpiece. We are serious about acting. Chapter 703. I see. Brother, I'm sorry. I was too impulsive and almost messed up your plan. Ling Tian's expression turned serious, and his eyes flashed with self-blame. It's all right. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He patted Ling Tian's shoulder and said, We are brothers. There is no need to say such things. You, on the other hand, don't casually reveal your sky demon body in the future. Otherwise, how can you live up to my efforts? Brother. I know. Ling Tian took in a deep breath, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Brother, I'm very happy to be able to see you. Let's go and choose some seafood. Tonight we will not return until we are drunk. Ling Xiao also smiled gently, but his eyes were calm from beginning to end. The seal on Meng Yuan's body was about to break. By then, it would be clear what kind of demon this saintess of the sacred sect was. As for what kind of secret she was hiding, it would be completely revealed along with the exposure of her demon body. However, no matter what, on that day, this saintess's heart would undergo a tremendous change. After cultivating for 20 years, she was determined to kill all the demons in the world. In the end, she was actually a demon? Damn. Should I kill myself for the sake of justice in my heart? See seafood? Ling Tian's expression turned serious. Ling Zhao's figure had already stepped forward, heading towards the great lake in the center of the realm. Apart from Sha Yun, the 6 sea race thearchs were mostly at the second or third stage of the god Tharch realm. These god thearchs were all vassals of the blood shark royal family. Their talents were limited, and they could at most be used as sacrificial warriors. Back then, Ling Xiao spared their lives not because of their cultivation base. It was just that this great lake was really spacious. They could raise a few rotten fish and shrimp. When they were free, they could also fish and catch crabs to cultivate their temperament. The life of a villain was really dry and boring. They could only create their own fun. As Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky, the 6 sea race thearchs immediately jumped out of the water and bowed to him. Greetings, Master. The few of you, reveal your true forms and let me see. Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent as he said coldly. Yes. Demonic aura fluctuated between heaven and earth. 6 gigantic demonic figures stood tall in the void. There were fishes, crabs, sharks, and turtles among them. Needless to say, they had quite a variety of taste. You then. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and pointed at one of the golden demon crabs. Follow me. Yes, Master. When the monster crab heard this, its eyes flashed with excitement. Could it be that he was going to soar to the heavens with a single bound today? However, only when the Ling Xiao trio arrived at the Sky Hall did the demon crab discover that there were a couple of figures seated around a table in the Sky Hall. They were holding bowls and chopsticks in their hands. It was as if they were waiting for the banquet to begin. Young Master, what is the seafood you're talking about? Floey's eyes flashed with greed while Lin Meng, Han Qingqiu, and the others had doubts in their eyes. Ling Xiao smiled and did not say anything. He waved his hand and an ancient bronze cauldron appeared in the void and expanded to a size of 1,000 feet. On the cauldron, there seemed to be Tao inscriptions flashing. Divine power fluctuated and the faint sound of waves surging could be heard from the cauldron. Then, Ling Xiao twisted 2 fingers and a ball of golden spiritual fire appeared under the cauldron. It burned fiercely. Go in. Ling Xiao turned to look at the demon crab. Even though its body was huge, it still seemed rather small in front of the cauldron. Go in. The demon crab was confused. Although the spiritual fire's temperature was extremely high, why did its limbs feel a little cold? Of course, no matter how confused it was, it did not dare to hesitate. In the end, it fell into the cauldron. Ling Xiao sealed the cauldron with his spiritual energy. Wait for a moment. This crab needs to be steamed slowly so that it will taste good. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and turned to look at Lin Meng. His figure descended and sat beside the girl. After we finish eating the seafood, I'll bring you to an interesting place. The gentleness in Ling Zhao's eyes made Lin Meng blush. She only replied with a soft and did not say anything else. On the other hand, Hua Hua and Han Qingqiu looked at Ling Xiao with confusion. "Young master, where is the interesting place you're talking about?" "You'll know in a moment." Ling Xiao smiled and raised his head to look at the cauldron above his head. He smelled a fragrance. Then, he took out hundreds of spiritual materials from his interspatial ring and threw them into the cauldron. "Brother, what do you plan to do next?" Ling Tian raised his wine cup and looked at Ling Xiao. "Deep in the sea there is a secret realm. There is something I want inside." Ling Xiao naturally trusted everyone present. He did not hide anything from them. "However, before that, I want to travel around the sea and see if I can find some fortune." To Ling Xiao, the so-called good fortune naturally referred to the person who was destined by the heavens. Now that he had Qin Chu and Chen Qingshan as his scapegoats, he could sit back and relax for a short period of time. At least, the first oracle and the Emperor of the Ocean would definitely focus on the sea tribe that had joined forces with the demon. The Heavenly Alligator Clan, as the overlord of the ancient Endless Sea, had reappeared in the world. Who knew if they had the ambition to dominate the world? It was the responsibility of the first oracle and the Emperor of the Ocean to figure out this and find the traces of the Heavenly Alligator Clan. Of course, Ling Xiao also wanted to find the destined person of the Heavenly Alligator Clan. However, this version of the Heavenly Alligator Clan would have to endure for a long time. He did not know if 300 years was enough. After all, his core had been dug out. He was neither human nor demon. Even if he accidentally awakened a terrifying talent, he would have to cultivate again. One day, he would be able to stand on top of the world and crush thousands of enemies. Ling Xiao certainly did not have time to wait for him to grow. Therefore, he had to drive the wolf to devour the tiger. After all, there was a 90% chance that Yizhan was in the sea. As long as the Emperor of the Ocean and the first oracle forced him, he would show up sooner or later. There was no place for him in the sea and the human race. Moreover, he was bent on becoming stronger. Where would he go? Of course, he would go to the ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligators. There was a celestial source bestowed by the ancient god there. As long as he integrated with this celestial source, his strength would definitely skyrocket. As the destined person, wherever there was good fortune, they would be there. As for Ling Xiao, he only needed to eat seafood along the way and enjoy the scenery of the sea. Finally, he would help him open up the ancestral land of the Heavenly Alligators and lure many fish into the net. It would be easy and effortless. This was the advantage of setting up a trap. Otherwise, all he had to do was wait for the heavens to bestow good fortune. That was the treatment of the destined person. I, Ling Xiao, am not worthy. As for the possibility of the many destined people falling, Ling Xiao guessed that it was impossible. If the destined person could be killed so easily, it could only mean that the setting was wrong. After all, for the time being, he was the only cheat in this world. As for the doubts of others, there were so many destined people. Was the setting right? Come on, this world was vast and there were countless strong people. Those who really stood on top of the world, which one of them did not have great fortune. Troubled times were coming, and there should be someone to face the calamity. Then, brother, let's split up tomorrow and meet in the depths of the sea. To Ling Xiao's surprise, Ling Tian's eyes flashed with a hint of battle intent. However, he was able to guess what Ling Tian was thinking in his mind. How could a sword immortal settle down in a corner and enjoy peace? Although the spiritual energy in this world was rich and it was a holy place for cultivation, for Ling Tian, fighting was the fastest way to improve his strength. What he needed was not spiritual energy or immortal treasures, but an indomitable force that could cut through everything. Chapter 704. Since you've made up your mind, go ahead. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently without any worry on his face. More than 10 heavens will had died in his hands in the Xingzhou land. However, in terms of talent, strength, and methods, this young sword immortal was the most terrifying. His Tao lay in slaughter, and only by gaining sudden enlightenment and cultivating amidst slaughter would he be able to ascend to the peak of the world one day. What Ling Xiao needed was not a loyal younger brother, but a helper who could fight against the heavens and slay immortals. Brothers had to grow together in order to go far. Life was like a magnificent wave, and people were just grains of sand in it. The waves washed away the sand, and the one who stood by your side in the end was not the one who had accompanied you for the longest, but the one who had always stood by your side in this storm and moved forward with you. The greater the difference in status, the weaker the relationship. Time could change everything. Nothing in this world would remain the same, be it the fantasy world or your current life. Therefore, work hard to move forward and climb. Strength was the foundation to maintain all beautiful things. Mutual encouragement. Thank you, brother. I will work hard. Ling Tian raised his head and drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. All right. We'll talk about tomorrow's matters tomorrow. Tonight, we're not going home until we're drunk. Ling Xiao smiled warmly and waved his hand to capture the cauldron, removing the seal. A strange fragrance wafted over. The fresh divine emperor crab meat was paired with hundreds of hundred-year-old spiritual ingredients and simmered over a spiritual fire for an hour. Without boasting, the spiritual energy contained in this pot of crab meat was comparable to a grade 4 or grade 5 spiritual pill. Gulp. Young master. I want it. Hua Hua's eyes flickered with greed, and tears of excitement flowed down the corner of her mouth. Everyone has a share. Ling Zhao's eyes flickered with playfulness. In the end, he cut the crab into 8 pieces and distributed them to everyone. Master, this isn't too good. This demon has already transformed. Poverty Xiao was clearly a little conflicted. Master, you are demons, but I'm a human. Eating demons is too cruel no matter how you think about it. I, destitute Xiao, have an upright character. Although I've pledged allegiance to the demons, I still have my bottom line. However, the moment Ling Xiao looked at him, Xiao Bo suddenly felt that, if he didn't behave well, would he also be cooked by his lord like this king crab? In the end, Xiao Ping gritted his teeth fiercely and took a light sip of the soup. What the f***ck? Was it really that delicious? I have never eaten anything as delicious as this. Even the leftover soup in the cauldron was eventually scooped into a bowl by Xiao Po and shamelessly drank it. Hee, it smells so good. My lord, when can we cook another imperial dish? When the sun set in the west, stars began to float in the realm. In the Sky Palace, everyone had eaten and drunk to their heart's content, and they looked up at the starry sky. The atmosphere was quiet and peaceful. Lin Meng and the others even felt that their bodies were burning hot, as if they were about to make a breakthrough. Big brother, is this star real? Yi Sun-er sat beside Ling Tian and asked curiously. It's not. Ling Xiao shook his head. Then, under the stunned gazes of Ling Tian, Yi Sun-er and Lin Meng, he suddenly stretched out his hand and gently grasped at the sky. A ray of starlight scattered, drawing a dazzling arc and falling into Ling Zhao's hand. What the f***ck? Holding the sun and moon and plucking the stars? Young master is so awesome. But, as the starlight scattered, the three of them saw that the thing in Ling Zhao's hand was actually a Tao artifact. So it's a Tao artifact, Yi Sun-er suddenly understood, but in the next moment, her face suddenly froze. Then, she looked up at the sky, at the thousands of miles of stars and the bright Milky Way above her head, and finally swallowed hard. If one star represented one Tao artifact, then there were at least thousands of Tao artifacts above her head, right? Gulp. You two go to the sea tomorrow. Remember, safety is the most important. If anything happens, send me a message immediately. Ling Xiao casually threw a cosmos bag to each of them. There are some spiritual treasures, medicinal pills, and divine talismans inside. Carry them with you. Don't force yourself. Although I have many treasures, I don't have the 9 revolutions soul return pill. I know, brother. Ling Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he nodded slightly. Ling Xiao turned to Lin Meng and Han Qingqiu. Let's go. I'll take you to a good place. Master, I want to go too. Hua Hua hurriedly got up and hugged Ling Xiao's arm, begging with a face full of pleading. Brother, I want to go too. Ning Er's little face was red. Obviously, she couldn't completely absorb the spiritual energy in the Lithotidae crab. She actually looked a little dizzy. You're too young. That place is not suitable for you. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Holding Lin Meng and Han Qingqiu in his arms, he walked towards the boundary. When the 4 of them were far away, Ning Er pouted and looked at Xiaopo with hatred. Didn't you comprehend the time Dao? Then use it for me and let me grow up faster. Xiaopo rolled his eyes at Ning Er, but he was curious. Why couldn't a child go to a fun place? Could it be F***CK? It seemed like he had guessed something incredible. This was 3 times the happiness? Master, you're burning. You want to go? A cold voice suddenly came from the void. Everyone was stunned, and there was a spiritual light whistling around them. Even with Xiao Po's God Emperor realm, he couldn't sense a trace of aura coming. At this moment, Feng Ling was wearing a black dress, standing in the starry sky with her hands behind her back. On her delicate and fair face, there was a trace of extreme indifference. Little ancestor! Ning Er's eyes flashed with a strange light, and then she nodded desperately. Let's go. I can't sleep tonight. Let's go and see what Ling Xiao wants to do. Feng Ling said indifferently. She waved her hand and held Ning Er's hand. Then, she chased after Ling Xiao and the others. My lord, where are we going? Hua Hua stood behind Ling Xiao, and her beautiful eyes were shining with excitement. She seemed to have some guesses. But, is it so exciting? You'll know when we get there. Ling Xiao's lips curved into a smile. Suddenly, he descended from the sky and stood on the peak of a mountain. There was an ancient forest, and there was a dense spiritual mist. The grass was fresh and fragrant, and the flowers were scattered everywhere. At Lin Shen's place, there was a clear lake across the mountain peak. It reflected the starlight, and it was magnificent. The lake water was as smooth as a mirror, and there seemed to be Tao rhymes flowing in it. What was even more inconceivable was that the bottom of the lake was actually densely covered with layers of spirit stones. They were smooth and pure, and under the starlight, they were like a piece of flawless jade, blooming with spiritual light. Like the Milky Way, like the Jade Lake. This is, the 3 women's faces flashed with joy. It wasn't because of the dense spiritual energy in the lake. It was because the lake on top of the mountain was too beautiful to be taken in. It was not something from the mortal world. Women always have no resistance to beautiful things and unexpected surprises. It was an eternal law. I call it the spiritual spring of the galaxy. Only my women have the right to enjoy it. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao suddenly took a step forward. The starry robe around his body automatically dispersed, revealing a body of strong but not bulky muscles. Gulp. Hua Hua's lips dripped with water. Without hesitation, she took off her armor and jumped towards the spiritual spring. Han Qingqiu shook her head and chuckled. Her eyes were like spring water, and her face was like a peach. She walked to the side of the spiritual spring, took off her dress, and dived into the water. Only Lin Meng's face was red. After some hesitation, she gritted her teeth and walked towards the 3. Chapter 705. At the peak of the barren mountain, the stars were shining brightly. Spiritual mist floated in the air. A few figures could be seen playing in the water, laughing from time to time. Young master, the water is warm. The spiritual qi in it is so dense. Ling Xiao's eyes twitched. He followed Hua Hua's gaze. This, even though he had seen countless women, he was still stunned by the scene in front of him. Young Master Lin Meng's blush had already reached her neck. Among all of Ling Xiao's women, Lin Meng was the most gentle. She was even timid in front of Ling Xiao. However, because of her timidness, she was different and pitiful. "Come here." The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. The originally calm pool suddenly rippled with thousands of ripples. At the same time, in the ancient forest beside the lake, two petite figures were hiding behind a tree. Two small heads peeked out and looked into the lake. "Little ancestor, I can't see clearly." Ning Er's eyes were filled with confusion. The ancient forest was still some distance away from the lake. With her strength, she could only see Ling Xiao and the others sitting in the lake. Lin Meng, in particular, was biting her red lip. Her expression was extremely complicated. "Oh, here it is. What's there to see?" Feng Ling's expression was indifferent. There was a hint of resentment in her voice. It was such a fun place, but Ling Xiao didn't bring her here. "Little ancestor, what are they doing? Why are they crying and laughing?" Ning Er looked at Feng Ling in confusion. However, Feng Ling Er's pretty face froze. She then pretended to be calm and said, "Oh, they are practicing an ancient cultivation method. It's not a big deal. Ling Xiao wanted me to practice with him before, but I didn't agree. Have you seen enough? If so, let's go." "Little ancestor, can I practice?" "You? You are too young. Try getting bigger." It was obvious that Feng Ling didn't know what Ling Xiao and the others were doing. However, last time, Ling Xiao had said that she had to be bigger to participate. Lin Meng had already fallen asleep by the lakeside. She was wearing a red robe and her legs were exposed. However, her spiritual energy seemed to be fluctuating. In just one night, she had entered the third level of the Divine Overlord realm. Inside the stone pond, Ling Xiao was hugging Han Qing Qiu and Floey. He had already closed his eyes and focused. Heaven and earth were silent, and not a sound could be heard. However, the smoke in the air seemed to be announcing that an intense battle had occurred here yesterday. Thousand Ghost Mountain, Nether Stream. At this moment, a figure was quietly sitting cross-legged in the ancient hall. At this moment, Chen Qingshan's face was no longer immature. Instead, it was extremely cold. Behind him, a demonic figure stood quietly. However, unlike Ling Xiao, the demonic figure around Chen Qingshan was a totem with a ferocious face and a sword in its hand. If the Thousand Ghost Mountain Master and the others were here, they would be able to tell that this demonic figure was the immovable Nether King, who was regarded as a god by the Gone Sky Divine Sect. Although it was called a demonic figure, in the eyes of the Gone Sky Divine Sect's disciples, this Nether King statue was an immortal god. Even the Gone Sky Divine Sect's sect master did not die when he cultivated the deity cultivation art. Instead, he disappeared without a trace. In the eyes of the disciples, the Gone Sky Divine Sect's sect master had most likely ascended to the upper realm. Sire. In the ancient hall, Chen Qingshan suddenly opened his eyes. The demonic aura around him was piercingly cold. An ancient demonic aura suddenly spread out. In just a few days, this young disciple of the immortal sect had entered the divine overlord realm. There was a faint power of Taoist laws surging in his body. However, that pair of clear eyes were filled with coldness and wickedness. Sire, don't worry. I will collect billions of souls as soon as possible and welcome you to a new life. Don't worry, the Lord Ling Xiao will save you. The current Chen Qingshan no longer had any thoughts of immortals, demons, good or evil in his heart. All he had was an obsession. Gu Sire. When he thought of the girl's determination to die that day, he felt as if his heart was being cut by thousands of blades. Buzz! The soul-sucking ghost pearl appeared in his hand. Chen Qingshan's eyes gradually turned blood-red. However, just as he was about to reach out and grab the ghost pearl in his hand, a faint soul consciousness fluctuation suddenly came from it. Chen Qingshan's eyes narrowed as he muttered softly, Are you calling for me? Young man. Who are you? When a low voice came from the pearl, Chen Qingshan looked at the ghost pearl in surprise. There seemed to be a ghostly figure floating in it, and it transformed into a young man's face. A weapon soul? Young man, do you know who Ling Xiao is? Gui Wupa's voice was filled with hatred. It was not easy. He had finally escaped from Ling Xiao's control. Naturally, he did not want to fall into that demon's hands again. Although Ling Xiao did not kill him back then, he had refined him into a weapon soul in the pearl. It was a great humiliation. He was the third successor of the Ghost Clan. Even in the upper realm, he was a formidable person who controlled the life and death of thousands of souls. But now, not a weapon soul? Who are you? Chen Qingshan's eyes flashed with caution. The demonic shadow appeared behind him, and endless demonic will rippled. The temperature of the entire ancient palace seemed to have dropped to the extreme. I am the successor of the Ghost Clan in the upper realm. Young man, Ling Xiao is lying to you. Even if you kill billions of souls, he will never be able to save your Taoist companion. Gui Wupu had heard everything that Chen Qingshan had said, especially the obsession in the young man's eyes. Even he felt an inexplicable sense of fear. But who was Ling Xiao? A hypocritical demon who toyed with people. Would he be kind enough to save a woman who had nothing to do with him? Moreover, Gui Wupa was more proficient in the Tao of the soul than Ling Xiao. Even he had never heard that collecting thousands of souls could allow someone to be reborn. Therefore, he guessed that Ling Xiao was most likely lying to this young man. If that was the case, it seemed like he could make use of his feelings. Gui Wupa, the outstanding representative of the behind-the-scenes forces, am best at judging the situation and bewitching people. Wupa, stand up. Chapter 706. What? Someone from the upper realm? Chen Qingshan's expression turned serious as he stared at the ghastly face in the pearl. Then how did you get sealed in the pearl? Ling Xiao is a great demon. How can you believe his words? The Ghost Clan cultivates the divine soul. Even I have never heard of any method that can bring the dead back to life. The reason he asked you to kill is most likely to cover up his identity and take the blame for him. With Gui Wupu's temperament, he quickly guessed Ling Xiao's motive. Of course, even if he was scheming, he did not expect Ling Xiao's soul catcher to be so useful. The reason why he dared to hand the ghost pearl to Ling Xiao was not because he was careless. It was because Gui Wupu did not know that Ling Xiao was the sky demon. He only knew that Ling Xiao was the incarnation of a great demon with terrifying means. Chen Qingshan only wanted to revive Gu Si. Even if Gui Wupu interfered, he would not let go of this opportunity easily. As for whether he would spread the news that Ling Xiao was a great demon, F***ck. You are a traitor of the righteous faction, a remnant of the demonic sect. How dare you insult our saint as a great demon? I don't believe you. You are so evil. With Gu Sir in his hands, Chen Qingshan would not be able to escape from Ling Xiao. Moreover, this pearl was Ling Xiao's spiritual treasure. No matter how much Gui Wupu calculated, he did not expect that Ling Xiao's divine soul had already reached the 8th grade Great Emperor realm. Therefore, everything he did could not escape Ling Xiao's senses. After all, Chen Qingshan had not completely surrendered. Ling Xiao's action was also to test him. If he had any other intentions, Ling Xiao would have killed him on the spot before he entered the sea domain to solve the problem. As a villain, he naturally had to be very careful. A chess piece with luck could be a sharp sword if used well. If not, it could hurt oneself. What a joke. Gui Wupu thought that he was a schemer, but he never thought that everything he did could not escape Ling Xiao's control. Of course, even if Ling Xiao was not seducing Chen Qingshan, the ghost pearl was equivalent to a mark. It could allow Ling Xiao to sense Chen Qingshan's movements at all times, and even disrupt his mind at critical moments. Both preparations were under control. However, to Gui Wupu's surprise, Chen Qingshan only nodded indifferently, then stood up and walked out of the hall. No, young man. He purposely made you his scapegoat. Aren't you going to express your anger? You have no way to revive Sire, but that doesn't mean that others don't. Moreover, the one who killed Sire back then was an elder of my immortal mystic sect, and not Lord Ling Xiao. Sire died because of me. Even if there is only a 1 in a billion chance, I will still do my best. Chen Qingshan said indifferently as he put the ghost pearl into his pouch. Also, Master has never said that he can definitely save Sire. You're so stubborn. You'll regret it sooner or later. As long as you can help me return to the upper realm, I will definitely help you reach the peak of heaven and earth. Young man. Wait. Young man. I'm just joking with you. Actually, I'm just testing you on behalf of Master. Congratulations, you've passed the test. Young man. Say something. Young man. Gui Wupu's voice was laced with a hint of panic. F***ck. What can I do? This young man, he doesn't listen to me again. What if he tells Ling Xiao about this later? I'm afraid I can't even beg for death, right? Wupu is lying down again. In the end, Chen Qingshan did not speak again. He took a step forward and disappeared. Which department should he start the massacre from? In the depths of the sea, in a blood-red hall. This was where the Blood Shark royal clan resided. As one of the 10 royal clans of the sea, the Blood Shark clan ruled over a territory of 80,000 miles and hundreds of sea clans. However, the atmosphere in the royal clan of the sea was somewhat oppressive today. What did you say? Wuxia and Elder Sha Yun died in the immortal mystic sect? In the hall, a middle-aged man wearing a blood-red robe with a dignified appearance shouted. His blood-red eyes flickered like ripples in the sea. Shark King, the immortal mystic sect's master, is cruel and tyrannical. He used the excuse of the sea clans and devils to capture us and search our souls. Elder Sha Yun and the others resisted with all their might. In the end, they died on the spot. Below the hall, an Ocean Clan god emperor wept bitterly. He was filled with grief and indignation. Immortal mystic sect, you've gone too far. Shark King's palm smashed down, instantly shattering the golden chair beneath him. King, there's one more thing. The immortal mystic sect has a heavenly poison body. Its name is Phoenix Rouge. It's a disciple of the immortal mystic sect. What? The anger on Shark King's face had yet to dissipate when it completely froze. F***ck. I was still thinking of an excuse to attack the immortal mystic sect. Now, old Hellion, watch how I destroy your sect. Are you sure it's the heavenly poison body? PFFF. Just as killing intent flickered in Shark Yun's eyes and he was muttering to himself, the Ocean Clan god emperor in the hall suddenly trembled. Following that, his entire body suddenly turned into a pool of blood. A dense smell of blood pervaded the air. Shark King's expression turned cold. He already had a guess in his heart. He was sure. The heavenly poison, turning into blood upon contact. There was no cure for it. Who would have thought that after a few hundred years, such a terrifying heavenly poison body would actually appear in the world again? Men, send someone to the immortal mystic sect. Find out the recent movements of the immortal mystic sect. Also, send someone to inform them about the heavenly poison body. This time, this king will lead the Ocean Clan and completely destroy the human race's sacred ground. Yes. At the border of the southern border, on top of a barren mountain. The sea breeze here was gentle. The sound of waves crashing was very pleasant to the ears. Standing at this place, one could see the endless expanse of the sea from afar. The bright sun shone brightly and the surface of the sea was rippling. It gave people a relaxed and happy feeling. Brother, let's part ways here. Ling Tian and Yi Sun stood in front of Ling Xiao with a smile on their determined faces. Yes, the sea is dangerous. It's far from what the southern border can compare to. Be careful. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and took a deep look at the youth. Beside him, Lin Meng and Han Qingqiu stood quietly. However, compared to yesterday, Lin Meng's originally shy and tender face seemed to have an additional touch of maturity. Even her temperament seemed to be much calmer and more reserved. However, the only thing that didn't change was the tranquility and indifference on her face. She just stood there without saying a word. She was obedient and at ease, as if she was one with the world. Don't worry, brother. I will take good care of Sooner. Ling Tian bowed deeply and then bowed to Lin Meng and Han Qingqiu. Sisters-in-law, take care. In the end, Ling Tian didn't say anything else. He turned into a stream of light and disappeared with Yi Sun. Young master, where are we going now? Han Qingqiu's pretty face flashed with a touch of red. She didn't seem to feel tired after yesterday's battle. Instead, she looked energetic. You and Meng are returned to the realm to cultivate. I'll go take a look at the sea race. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and kept the two women into the realm. He lifted his feet and walked towards the sea in the distance. Calculating the time, it was almost time to reunite with Shi Er. Ling Xiao was also a little curious about this little princess of the sea. Whether it was the desolate heaven ancient tablet or the spirit conch, they were both beyond the category of Tao artifact. Especially the desolate heaven ancient tablet, its power was even more terrifying. To be able to casually give it to others, it had to be said that this girl called Shi Er most likely had a great background. And Ling Xiao had just entered the sea. Of course, he had to find someone who was familiar with the terrain of the sea to lead the way. This way, he could save a lot of trouble. As for the first divine envoy and the ocean monarch, Ling Xiao had already thrown the divine token into the universe ring. He didn't pay attention to the voice transmission of the divine envoy of the saint sect. He left more suspense for him to imagine freely. In this way, this loyal servant of the divine master would definitely not leave the southern border in a short period of time. He had lost the saint. It would take him a while to find him. One day, when Ling Xiao found the ancestral land of the heavenly crocodile and finished collecting the fortunes, he would be able to harvest the saint. The chess pieces had been placed. It was time to enjoy the scenery of the vast sea. Chapter 707. The vast sea was sparkling with light. Compared to the human territory, the sea was vast. However, there were many sea clans in it. Almost every sea had sea clans. Of course, it didn't mean that humans couldn't step into the sea. After all, there were thousands of islands in the sea. Most of the people living on them were human cultivators. At this time, on an island near the southern border, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the endless stream of people on the island indifferently. This island was called Forgotten Island, where the human territory was located. There was an ancient city called U City. The cultivators coming and going in the city were both humans and sea clans. The cultivators of the two clans exchanged resources and spiritual materials here. It was the largest trading place in the area. Back then, Qin Yu saved Wei Jinlin here. That was how the story came to be. According to the agreement, the two of them would complete the 6-year agreement here in 2 days. Behind Ling Xiao, Stacked Shadow appeared and bowed to Ling Xiao. Summon the secret guards. Help me find out something. Yes, master. Stacked Shadow looked calm. He took out a soul tablet in his hand. His eyes flickered for a moment before he put it away. Who do you want to find out, master? Find out which clans in the Endless Sea are not loyal to the Sea Emperor. Then, send people to guard these clans and see if any strangers come. Ling Zhao's eyes revealed a deep look. He had been thinking about the heavenly alligator clan's Tianming. Now that the demon sect had joined forces with the sea clans to destroy the immortal mystic sect, it was likely that the news had spread. Moreover, since the Sea Emperor Yen knew about the Heavenly Alligator Clan, she would most likely come to the immortal mystic sect to see Eni, who was sealed in the Heavenly Lake. Once she found out that Eni had disappeared, she would probably mobilize the entire Sea Clan to search for the 2 Heavenly Alligator Clan members. That's right. The sea was vast. Looking for 2 people was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, no matter how deep the sea was, there were traces of the Sea Clans. Ziyan's ruthlessness had always been feared by the other clans. With Zhang's current strength, it would not be easy to escape the search. If he had no other choice, he would definitely appear and seek protection. Everyone in the world knew that Ziyan had used thunderous methods to suppress the myriad of clans in the sea, and that was how she obtained the title of Oceanic Emperor. However, the Heavenly Alligator Clan used to be the overlord of this sea. Furthermore, this ancient clan was protected by the Immortals. Even though they had disappeared for 1,000 years, they still had believers. If he wanted to find Zhang, he first had to find out which Sea Clan members weren't sincerely loyal to Ziyan. That way, as long as he waited, he would definitely find traces of Zhang. When the time comes, little seafood, do you want to develop first? Daddy Ling Xiao won't give you that chance. Remember, the purpose of cultivation is to be arrogant and domineering. Don't hesitate, do it? Do it now. Yes, my lord. Stacked Shadow bowed and disappeared on the spot. Ling Xiao also took out a pill from his ring and transformed into Qin Yu's appearance. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the 3rd day, the sky had just brightened when Ling Xiao had already arrived before that expanse of sea according to their agreement, and he waited calmly. It was only when a spiritual spiral suddenly appeared in the seawater that the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. It's here. Endless water vapor wriggled into a vortex and floated from the bottom of the sea. A young girl in a long blue dress suddenly broke through the sea curtain and stepped on the waves barefoot. Her hair was scattered, without a single trace of water on it. Her pretty face was obviously nervous and expectant. Her temperament was ethereal, and her beautiful eyes were clean and clear like a piece of beautiful jade. They were so flawless that it made one's heart ache. There was a blue ripple between her eyebrows. Divine light rippled within it, as if it contained a king's sun, revealing endless mysteries. One had to admit that this young girl's temperament was otherworldly. Even if Han Qingqiu's body was a 10th-grade pill, there was still a trace of worldly aura on her. However, this young girl seemed to have descended from the 9 heavens and entered the human world for the first time. Ling Xiao revealed a gentle smile, and the young girl's eyes flickered with nervousness. Brother Yu, is that you? It's me. Ling Xiao smiled brightly. Suddenly, a divine steel rushed into the sky in his hand and stood on top of the sky, emitting thousands of Taoist rhymes. The entire forgotten islet seemed to have suddenly quieted down. Countless pairs of eyes looked at the sky, revealing covetous greed. This was the place where the Sea Clan and the Human Clan lived together. Although it was somewhat exotic, it was also extremely chaotic. Killing people to steal treasures and burning corpses to destroy evidence naturally happened frequently. Brother Yu. It's really you. Er's figure descended from the sky. Her bare feet were as clean as the moonlight, inexplicably charming. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, and a figure seemed to appear in his mind. Her white clothes fluttered, and she was cold and aloof. In the blink of an eye, she had been gone for almost a year. Looking at the young girl in front of him, she was a 3rd-grade divine marquis with the Tao of Water and 4,000 fate points. Vaguely, Ling Xiao could feel a trace of primitive aura from her. Obviously, this young girl's bloodline had some history. However, it seemed that it had not been fully awakened. At this moment, Ling Xiao could feel Er's nervousness and restraint. Obviously, after not seeing each other for so many years, the relationship between this young girl and Qingyu was not as solid as gold and iron. After all, from Qingyu's memory, Ling Xiao already knew that the two of them had only met twice. The first time, it was Qingyu who rescued her from the beach where she was stranded. The second time, it was this young girl who brought the Dao steel to repay his kindness and made a promise that they would meet again in 6 years. In other words, this so-called childhood plum was naturally grateful to Qingyu and also had some feelings for him. However, it was far from the point where they would follow each other through life and death. If Qingyu did not die, the two of them would definitely travel the sea domain and experience many hardships. In the end, their feelings would turn into undying love. But now Ling Xiao sighed softly and reached out to touch the young girl's beautiful face. He saw that Shi-er's expression was slightly serious. She seemed to be hesitating, but in the end, she did not avoid his touch. Shi-er, where have you been for the past 6 years? Brother Yu, I have been cultivating with my master in the depths of the sea domain. This time, I finally have the time to go back to the clan and visit my family. I came out to see you. Shi-er bit her red lips with her silver teeth and her beautiful face was somewhat shy. However, at this moment, a trace of doubt flashed through her eyes. Especially when Ling Zhao's hand gradually moved down until it held her jade neck. Shi-er, you are so beautiful. Looking at the burning passion in the young man's eyes, Shi-er's heart trembled slightly. Why did she feel that Brother Yu had changed? Was he so frivolous and impatient before? We haven't seen each other for 6 years. Did you miss me? Ling Xiao gently held Shi-er in his arms. Although the young girl's heart was full of doubts, she did not think too much about it in the end. She just thought that Qingyu had lost his composure because he missed her so much. However, no matter what, Shi-er's delicate body was still somewhat stiff because it was the first time she was so close to Qingyu. Yes. A soft moan came from Ling Zhao's arms, and a trace of gloominess suddenly flashed in the latter's eyes. You missed me, but I didn't see you bring me any precious gifts. Chapter 708. Brother Yu, what did you say? The shyness on Shi-er's face instantly froze. She lifted her head to look at the greed on Ling Zhao's face, and a strange feeling arose in her heart. Shi-er, don't tell me you don't know? Demons and demons are running rampant in the southern border, and even the immortal mystic sect has been destroyed. My powers are weak, and if not for the 2 numinous treasures you gave me, I would have died long ago. So, for my safety, shouldn't you give me a few more treasures like the desolate heaven ancient tablet? Demons are running rampant? Brother Yu, I heard from Master about the recent events in the sea. Has the southern border really become so chaotic? Shi-er's brows were filled with panic, but her heart was filled with bitterness. Treasures like the desolate heaven ancient tablet? My dear brother Yu, do you know where this tablet came from? Even in the sea, it is difficult to find a spiritual treasure of the same level as it, let alone in my hands. When I gave this tablet to you, I was almost beaten to death by Master. You actually still want it? What's wrong, Shi-er? You can't bear to part with it? Ling Zhao's face instantly darkened and he gradually loosened his grip on Shi-er. Shi-er, don't forget that I was the one who saved your life. You said that you would repay me. Don't tell me that you think giving me 2 spiritual treasures is enough to repay me? Ling Zhao's face was stern and his eyes were cold. When Shi-er saw this scene, she felt a chill in her heart. She felt wronged. Brother Yu, I can give you all my spiritual treasures, but I really don't have anything of the same level as the desolate heaven ancient tablet. I have already given you the best. Brother Qingyu, why did you become like this? Can 6 years really change a person? You don't have any? Then your master should have some, right? Your clan should have some, right? Shi-er, I saved your life. Without me, you would have died long ago. Don't try to renege on your debt. Ling Xiao snorted coldly. The reason why he kept emphasizing that he saved Shi-er's life was to mislead the girl into thinking that he had a motive for saving her life. In this way, what childhood sweethearts? 2 young playmates? That's a completely different story. Brother Yu, You too. Did you see the ancient tablet in the void just now? Just as Shi-Er's eyes were filled with bitterness, a sharp shout suddenly came from the void in the distance. Then, 3 strange-looking members of the sea tribe flew over and stood in front of them. The 3 of them were all second-grade deity overlords and their ages were around 100 years old. In other words, they were 3 pieces of trash who were mere extras. What ancient tablet? I didn't see it. Ling Xiao shook his head and quietly retreated, standing behind Shi-Er. Just now, he had purposely released the aura of the desolate heaven ancient tablet in order to attract calamity, so that Shi-Er could fully recognize him. She was a young girl after all. After not seeing each other for 6 years, she would definitely have many fantasies about the person she missed. Don't worry, your illusions will soon be shattered one by one. In this world, who would fancy a greedy, cowardly scoundrel who only knew how to take advantage of others? I didn't see anything. Then hand over your Qianquan bags and let us brothers search through them. The leader, an ugly man with a fish head and a human body, sneered. Big brother, that girl is quite pretty. Why don't we, the ancient tablet is in her hands. If you want to find it, go to her. Shi-Er, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. See you in the city. Ling Xiao looked at Shi-Er in panic, turned around and rushed toward Yu City in the distance. Seeing this, not only Shi-Er, but even the 3 young members of the Sea tribe were completely stunned. Is he such a good-for-nothing? Third brother, go and capture him. I feel that the tablet is on him. The fish head sneered. Behind him, another sea demon with a face full of green scales smiled eerily and turned around to chase after Ling Xiao. Sigh. Shi-Er sighed softly. The anticipation and nervousness on her face had long disappeared. It was replaced by an indescribable sense of loss. After 6 years of longing, what she saw in the end was this thing? In the face of danger, he turned around and ran away? Stay here. Just as the sea demon with green scales turned around, Shi-Er's cold voice suddenly came from above their heads. Then, the 3 demons were dumbfounded to see that the beautiful girl suddenly had water flowing around her body. It turned into 3 pillars of water and fell from the sky. Boom! Terrifying Taoist rhymes poured out. Although Shi-Er was only a 3rd-grade divine marquis, her Taoist law of water was close to the phenomenal success stage. Therefore, the 3 demons were only able to resist for a moment before they were crushed into a pile of flesh and blood by the divine pillars. Brother Yu, did you really never fall in love with Shi-Er? Shi-Er stood where she was and looked at Ling Xiao, who had already disappeared. She sighed softly. But in the end, she still lifted her foot and chased after Ling Xiao. Perhaps he had his own difficulties? On the other side, Ling Xiao stepped into the air. Just as he was about to enter Yu City, he saw a ripple in the void. A human cultivator in black stood with his hands behind his back and looked at him coldly. Hand it over. The moment the desolate heaven ancient tablet appeared, the entire forgotten islet felt a terrifying aura that suppressed the ancient times. The 3 sea tribe members were not the only ones who coveted this treasure. The middle-aged man in black had already entered the divine king realm. But when he saw Shi-Er's Taoist rhymes, he did not dare to act rashly. Who knew if there was a Tao protector behind the girl from the sea tribe? However, the human youth in front of him looked ordinary and did not have any Taoist rhymes. He was obviously trash. Killing him would not bring about a disaster. Oh? You want it? But the middle-aged man in black was slightly surprised that the young man who had fled in fear when facing the 3 divine marquis now showed an extremely cold attitude in front of him. F***CK. Is he pretending to be me? You're courting death. The middle-aged man in black suddenly unsheathed his long sword, and the spiritual aura around him surged like the sea. But just as he was about to kill Ling Xiao, the latter suddenly waved his hand and took out the ancient tablet. It's really in your hands. You want it? Then I'll give it to you. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and threw the ancient tablet to the middle-aged man in black. Ha 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 ha, what a treasure! This tablet is mine. But just as he stretched out his hand and was about to catch the ancient tablet, he saw Taoist rhymes flowing on it. Wisps of divine light bloomed from the tablet and the ancient aura suddenly fell, suppressing the middle-aged man. You're courting death. How dare you plot against me? Of course, even if he was caught off guard, he naturally did not put the young man in his eyes. In fact, in order to avoid destroying the tablet's charm, the middle-aged man in black kept his sword and gathered spiritual energy in his palm, grabbing the ancient tablet. Chapter 709. Pucci. The moment the black-clothed middle-aged man's palm made contact with the ancient monument, the divine monument that was originally several meters tall suddenly transformed into a 100-meter-tall shadow that covered the heavens and earth. There seemed to be a divine force pressing down on him, and in just an instant, his arms were shattered. How is this possible? The black-clothed middle-aged man's face was deathly pale, and his eyes were filled with despair. However, before he could struggle, the ancient monument had already pressed down from the sky, crushing his entire body into a pile of mud. Ling Xiao stood in the air with a cold expression. Then, he turned his head to look at the distant sky, put away the ancient monument, and landed in front of Yu City. Sheer. At the end of the world, a beautiful blue-clothed figure stepped on the void. The moment her jade-like feet landed, the space seemed to ripple with thousands of ripples. The sky turned into a sea, and the spirit light became a bridge. It was like an immortal miracle. At this moment, there was no longer any joy on Sheer's face. There was only an extremely cold indifference. I knew it. Those smelly fish and shrimps can't hurt you. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, as if he didn't feel ashamed at all for escaping just now. Sheer only looked at him with a complicated expression, and then nodded lightly. Brother Yu, this Forgotten Islands auction house is the largest in the southern border. I've asked around, there's only 1 day left until the annual Starlight ceremony. It's said that the trading company will take out many precious treasures. If you like anything, I'll give it to you. Great. Sheer, I knew that you wouldn't disappoint me. Don't forget, your life was saved by me. Ling Xiao laughed heartily, but Sheer's face was already as cold as ice. That's right, my life was saved by you. Originally, I was also very grateful to you. In fact, after 6 years, I already had a trace of feelings for you in my heart. But why are you treating me like this? Qingyu, I will repay your kindness, but in the future, we will no longer have anything to do with each other. Let's go. Let's go eat something. Sheer, which clan are you from? Who is your master? Ling Xiao and Sheer walked side by side on the streets of Yu City. Compared to the current turmoil of the human race, this island was much more peaceful. However, at this moment, looking at the picturesque young girl, many practitioners in the city showed faint hostility towards Ling Xiao. Where did the hatred come from for the destined person? It was most likely from a woman's body. Although I'm not Tianming, what I'm doing now is Tianming's doing. Brother Yu, I'm from the Golden Scaled clan, a small clan in the Endless Sea. She shook her head and chuckled. As for master, it's better if you don't know. Oh? A small tribe of the Endless Sea? Ling Xiao's lips curled up into a sinister smile. Seems like the background of this she did not lie with her family, but with her master. To be able to take out a treasure like the desolate Heaven Ancient Tablet, it was obvious that she-er's background was not ordinary. In fact, the destruction of the Qingyu clan was due to the existence of this treasure. Can't say? It seemed that he didn't trust her enough. This one will do. Ling Xiao pointed at a restaurant beside him and walked in. He asked for a private room and sat down with Sheer. However, just as the two of them took their seats, a young man of the Sea clan in gorgeous clothes suddenly walked into the private room with a gentle smile on his face. Miss, my young master is just next door. He would like to invite you over to get to know him. Your young master? Who is your young master? Do you think you can call my Shi just because you want to? Do you think I'm calling a dog? Ling Xiao snorted and pointed at the young man from the Sea tribe. Get lost. My young master is called Zhang Wu. Have you heard of him? The young man from the Sea tribe did not even look at Ling Xiao and continued to look at Shi with a smile. Zhang Wu? The one from the Demon Crow royal family? Shi frowned, but Ling Xiao's expression suddenly froze. The Demon Crow royal family's young master? Hiss hiss hiss. Shi, why don't you go over and have a seat? Hearing this, Shi-er's beautiful eyes narrowed, and a flame of anger burned in her heart. This is the person I've been waiting for 6 years? First, he was greedy for the treasure, then he abandoned me and ran away, and now he's pushing me to another man? Qingyu, I'm really disappointed in you. Why are you looking at me like that? Your Golden Scale tribe is just a small tribe. The Demon Crow royal family is a royal family. If you offend the Demon Crow royal family's young master, aren't you afraid that he will be angry and destroy your tribe? Ling Xiao glared at Shi, but the girl's face darkened and she said coldly, Go back and tell your young master that I don't know him and I don't want to know him. Miss, I'm afraid you don't know my young master's temper. If he wants something, no one dares to snatch it. Get lost. Shi shouted coldly, and a spiritual light suddenly bloomed around her body. Before the young man from the Sea tribe could react, he felt a huge force hit him and sent him flying 100 feet away. Poochie. He spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the young man from the Sea tribe could clearly feel that all the ribs in his chest had been broken. Ha ha, what a surprise today! There's such a beauty on this deserted island. Someone from my Demon Crow clan dares to hurt her. At this moment, a cold laugh came from the room next door. Then, a long-faced young man in a golden robe and a golden crown slowly walked out of the room and stood outside the door. He first looked at the servant who was struggling before he turned to look at Shi. I didn't expect this beauty to have such a bad temper. But I like it. It's young Master Zhang Wu. At this moment there were many onlookers in the restaurant. The Starlight Ceremony of the Forgotten Island was the grandest auction in the Sea area. It would attract many prodigies from the Sea area to come here and choose their favorite treasure. The Demon Crow clan was one of the top 10 royal tribes. Even the young masters of the other royal tribes did not dare to provoke them, let alone ordinary members of the Sea area. This was because the Demon Crow clan had always been vengeful and vicious. What do you think, little beauty? Do you want to get to know me now or wait until I capture you and then we can get to know each other? Zhang Wu sneered. Beside him stood an old man with a cold expression. The elder was a 6th-stage divine emperor. He should be the servant of the young master of the Demon Crow clan. Shi, why don't you get to know him? You are both members of the Sea tribe. Maybe you can have more friends and have more options. Ling Xiao sighed softly, but Shi didn't look at him from beginning to end. Cowardly, greedy, selfish. She was completely disappointed in him. You'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, your Demon Crow clan will disappear from the Sea area. Shi-er's voice was clear. The blue totem between her eyebrows glowed with a mysterious light. Hiss hiss. Hearing Shi-er's words, many experts from the Sea tribe who were watching the show gasped. Asking a royal tribe to disappear from the Sea area? This little girl is too arrogant, isn't she? In the entire Endless Sea, there was only one person who had the ability to do so. She was the Sea Emperor Ziyan. But they had never heard that Zixian had a daughter. Bragging. This little girl is bragging. Chapter 710. Interesting. In the corner of the restaurant, a white-clothed figure held a porcelain cup and sipped the wine in it. A smile bloomed on his face. People of destiny indeed liked to show off. However, they rarely did so. In other words, what Shi said was most likely true. She or the person behind her definitely had the ability to destroy a royal family of the sea region. The Golden Scale clan was just a small clan that couldn't even be considered a royal family. Naturally, it was impossible for She-Er to rely on them. In the entire Endless Sea, there were only two people who had such strength: the first divine envoy and the Sea Emperor Ziyen. It seemed that the master that She-Er mentioned was most likely Ziyen. In this way, the origin of the desolate Heaven Ancient Tablet was extremely clear. As for why no one in the Endless Sea knew that the Sea Emperor had accepted a disciple, Ling Xiao felt that it was a form of protection from Ziyen. After all, the new Sea Emperor had been conquering the sea region for 100 years. There were at least 100,000 people who had died in her hands, if not 1,000,000. Although the sea region looked peaceful now, everyone was intimidated by Ziyan's ruthless method. Once an enemy knew of She-Er's identity, it was inevitable that they would secretly do something. However, until now, Ling Xiao still didn't understand. Since Ziyen had schemed against Yi and his son, how could she not know how to win people's hearts? But why did she blindly kill and seek instant benefits? Those who followed her would prosper, and those who opposed her would die. Of course, this was the fastest way to unify the sea region. However, if she wanted to consolidate her position, this method was not appropriate. Unless what she cared about was not the position of the Sea Emperor at all. Ignorant fool, who do you think you are? How dare you speak to the young master of my clan like this? Behind Zhang Wu, the 6th-grade Divine Emperor shouted angrily and stepped forward. The Emperor's aura around him surged and almost overturned the entire restaurant. Damn it! She-Er's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. However, she was somewhat hesitant at this moment. Her master had once said that before she cultivated to the God-Emperor realm, she couldn't casually reveal her identity. Otherwise, the Golden Scale clan would be implicated. However, with her current strength, she was indeed unable to fight against a 6th-grade Divine Emperor. Brother Yu, let's go. She-Er shouted softly, grabbed Ling Xiao's hand and was about to leave. Ha ha ha, young lady. Since my young master has taken a fancy to you, you should stay. Buzz. A wisp of Emperor's pressure turned into a spiritual curtain that instantly enveloped the entire restaurant. That God-Emperor expert clenched his fist, and countless tentacles appeared in the void, grabbing towards She-Er furiously. Brother Yu, you go first. She-Er's expression was icy cold as the divine ocean between her brows surged. It instantly overturned a corner of the spiritual screen, and then it forcefully pushed Qin Yu out. Good. She-Er, take care of yourself. Ling Xiao didn't even look back as he disappeared before everyone's eyes. In the end, She-Er's eyes flashed with disappointment and determination. Boom! Boundless divine light flickered between her eyebrows, and a water-blue spirit shadow suddenly appeared between heaven and earth, standing behind She-Er. The entire restaurant collapsed, raising smoke and dust into the air. Buzz. Amidst the dust, countless strange tentacles snaked out, piercing through the void and smashing onto She-Er's spiritual shadow. Poochie. Even if She-Er was extraordinarily talented and had shocking means, how could she be a match for a 6th-grade God-Emperor? With just one blow, the spiritual shadow outside her body was instantly shattered, and she was instantly sent flying backwards, blood dripping from her mouth. However, before She-Er's figure landed on the ground, the countless tentacles had already wrapped around her body and dragged her towards Zhang Wu. Zhang Wu, you will regret this. She-Er's beautiful eyes were filled with panic. This time, she used the excuse of returning to the clan as an excuse and didn't inform her master of her whereabouts. Her master also didn't know that the spirit snail she gave She-Er to save her life had also been given to Qin Yu by this prodigal girl. Therefore, her master probably didn't expect that she would fall into such a predicament. Qin Yu, I gave up everything and waited bitterly for 6 years. I tried my best to fulfill my promise with my master before I walked out of the Ocean Emperor Palace to see you. But why have you changed? Is this what her master meant by not being fated to be together? Forget it. Everything was a mistake. Buzz. Just as She-Er's eyes were filled with loneliness and bitterness and she was sighing softly, a loud sword chime suddenly came from the ruins. A ray of clear light, like the light of creation in the depths of the primordial chaos, flashed leisurely and then disappeared in an instant. Who is it? Countless experts around were shocked as they turned to look in the direction where the sword light came from. They saw a young man sitting peacefully with his legs crossed. He held an ancient sword in one hand and a wine cup in the other. He didn't even look at the crowd as he gently sipped the wine in the cup. He didn't emit any spiritual power from his body. His white robe was peerless and he looked otherworldly. Furthermore, his fairy-like appearance made countless geniuses at the scene tense up. They unconsciously clenched their fists, and there was nothing else in their eyes. Plop! She-Er's figure fell from the sky, and the tentacles that were originally binding her were neatly broken at this moment. His countless gasps were instantly heard. At this moment, the entire Yu city's attention was attracted by the commotion. Even Emperor God Mo Wu's eyes flashed with a glint of shock. He had seen the sword light just now. The terrifying Taoist rhyme contained in it made him instinctively fearful. How could it be? He was a 6th-grade divine emperor, one of the top experts in the sea region. How could he be afraid of a young man? Who are you? Zhang Wu frowned slightly, and his narrow eyes flashed with a sinister light. A human dared to be so arrogant in the sea region? Although this wasn't Mo Wu's territory, the sea region was now unified. Although the royal families still had private disputes, their attitude towards the human race was surprisingly consistent. However, the sword essence that this young man had just displayed was indeed somewhat impressive. His appearance and temperament were indeed fairy-like. Therefore, Zhang Wu didn't dare to act rashly. However, he was somewhat relieved after thinking about it. The celestial mystic sect had been destroyed, and the human race's largest sect in the southern border had become a thing of the past. In the entire southern border, who would dare to go against the Sea tribe? He knew that the first divine envoy was in the southern border. However, looking at this young man, he couldn't be the first divine envoy. F***ck. If so, what was there to be afraid of? Humph. Young man, no matter who you are, you won't be able to escape death for interfering with the Sea tribe's affairs today. Zhang Wu gave the 6th-grade divine emperor a look, and the latter immediately understood. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Ling Xiao in an instant. Then, he pressed his palms down and aimed for Ling Xiao's head. Boom! A glaring spiritual light shot up into the sky. The entire Yu city seemed to tremble slightly at this moment. However, the 6th-grade divine emperor's furious palm didn't hit the young man in white. Instead, it hit a sturdy armor that was as tough as gold. Everyone's expression froze, and their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. At this moment, a mountain-like figure stood quietly in front of the young man, and there wasn't any fluctuation of energy coming from him. However, just by standing there, he was like a punishment from heaven, and no living beings dared to get close to the young man. Chapter 7:11. Is this a puppet? Zhang Wu stood in front of the crowd, his eyes wide open. Few people in the entire Xingzhou could withstand the full force of a 6th-grade divine emperor's palm with their physical strength. Where did this young man come from? For some reason, Zhang Wu felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet and gushing out from the top of his head. I don't like to be disturbed when I'm drinking. Ling Xiao raised his head and poured the last drop of wine into his mouth. Then, he got up and walked toward the city. His robe fluttered in the wind. Even his back was like a carving knife that cut deep into his bones. Peerless young master, banished immortal, this must be what they meant. Kill them all. When Ling Zhao's figure was about to disappear, Zhang Wu said softly without looking back. Boom. Xiong Huan slowly stretched out his hand. There seemed to be mountains, rivers, and billions of stars in his palm. The oceanic species Divine Emperor's expression changed drastically. He wanted to break free, but he couldn't. That palm was only a few feet long, but it was as vast as the sky. In the end, Xiong Huan grabbed his head and crushed it in front of everyone's terrified eyes. Poof! Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. The thick smell of blood filled the entire city. Zhang Wu's legs trembled. He felt his legs go weak. He didn't even have the strength to run away. Casually pinching a 6th-grade Divine Emperor to death? This puppet. No, there was killing intent in his eyes. But why was there no life? However, before Zhang Wu could figure out what was going on, the mountainous figure was already right in front of him. Zhang Wu looked up and saw a pair of emotionless eyes. He swallowed hard and said, "I'm the young master of the demonic crow clan, Zhang Poof." Before Zhang Wu could finish his words, Xiong Huan's fist landed on him and smashed him into a pile of mush. Gulp. At this moment, whether it was the sea race or the human race, there was nothing but shock in their eyes. When did such a ruthless person come to the sea region? Who was this young man? He killed a young master of a royal family without batting an eye. The reason was because he interrupted his drinking? He couldn't afford to offend them. At this moment, Shi-Er's pretty face was filled with doubt. Originally, she thought that the young man was helping her. But now, it seemed that he had thought too much. Inexplicably, Shi-Er's heart was suddenly filled with curiosity. They were curious about his identity and also curious why he was so different from all the other youths in this world. In the past, wherever Shi-Er appeared, there would always be bootlickers following her. As for those with some status, they would either use force like Zhang Wu or act arrogantly and rudely because of their status. However, that white-clothed youth seemed to be different from the rest of the world. Cold, arrogant, mysterious, domineering, ignoring all the rules of the world. In him, Shi-Er seemed to see the shadow of her master. Who could it be? Is it true that he didn't do it for me? However, no matter what, it was better to inform Master so that the demon crow race would not send more experts over. I wasn't thinking for him, and he wasn't doing it for me. I'm just worried that I'll miss the Starlight Ceremony tomorrow. In the center of Yu City, in front of a magnificent golden palace, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. His white robes fluttered like an immortal. At this moment, there was not a trace of emotion on his face. It was as if Xiong Huan had not killed the young master of the royal family, but a small fry. Since he had guessed the identity of Shi-Er's master, the demon crow race would not dare to step into this place easily. Moreover, even if they came, they would most likely become Ling Zhao's nourishment. As for why he did not take the opportunity to make a good impression on Shi-Er just now, haha, childish. Do you know how to deal with the right situation? After all, Shi-Er was Qing Yu's childhood sweetheart. No matter how disappointed she was now, Qing Yu was still her savior. Ling Zhao's pure Dao body disguised as Qing Yu had always been a greedy and cowardly person, and he had to act indifferent and domineering. Comparing the two, Shi-Er would sooner or later be interested in him. At that time, Ling Xiao would only need to casually set up a chess game and ask Shi-Er to return the favor of saving her life to Qing Yu. The trace of guilt in her heart would probably completely disappear. Do you think that's the end? How many times have I said that there are 18 levels in the Earth domain? Shi-Er's model is loyal and loyal. Even if Qing Yu was so unbearable, she still did not leave him. So, if her entire clan was destroyed and I helped her take revenge, do you think she would be moved to tears? Of course, the destruction of her clan was not just to tame Shi-Er. This would be the beginning of another chess game. Everyone is the chess piece, and I am the chess piece. Every step must be careful and thorough. Only then will there be a day when I can step into the 9 heavens and defeat the immortals. Stop, this is the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. In front of the Golden Palace, 2 middle-aged men in black reached out and stopped Ling Zhao's figure. However, the moment they finished speaking, they saw the young man suddenly reach out and take out a golden ancient token. The 2 men were stunned. In the next moment their eyes suddenly widened. Greetings, Alliance leader. Ling Zhao did not pay attention to the shock of the 2 of them and walked into the hall. Soon, the news of the demonic Crow clan's young master being killed spread throughout the entire Yu city. While everyone was fearful, they also had a strong interest in the mysterious white-clothed young master. Especially the sentence that said he killed a young master of a royal clan because he disturbed his mood to drink? How arrogant and domineering was this? Suddenly, undercurrents surged in Yu city. Countless experts of the sea race sent out to inquire about Ling Zhao's whereabouts, but in the end, they only received one piece of news. The white-clothed young master seemed to have entered the auction house of the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance and did not come out. Could it be that this was the young master of the Cloud Gathering? But wasn't the young master of the Cloud Gathering a woman? Are you inside? In the center of Yu city, in a restaurant adjacent to the auction house, Ling Zhao stood outside a guest room and asked softly. Creak. The door opened and Shi stood in front of Qin Yu with an indifferent expression. Brother Qin Yu. It's great that you're fine. Qin Yu walked into the room and casually sat on Shi bed. Shi, I heard that a mysterious young master killed Zhang Wu today? Who is he? I don't know who that young master is either. Shi shook her head, but Qin Yu suddenly sneered. I don't care. He saved you and I should thank him. Why are you lying? Lying? Shi frowned slightly and instantly understood what Qin Yu meant. You think that I know that young master but don't want to tell you? What's the big deal? If you don't know him, why would he help you kill someone? And he killed a young master of a royal clan? What is your relationship? Qin Yu's eyes flashed with jealousy, and even his tone revealed a hint of frivolity. I said that I don't know him. Also, he didn't kill him for me. It was because Zhang Wu disturbed his mood to drink. Shi still wanted to explain, but Qin Yu shook his head with a smile. Do you believe your own words? Who in this sea region would dare to kill a young master of a royal clan for such a reason? Shi, didn't you say that you just came out of seclusion after 6 years? You hooked up with a human young master right after you came out of seclusion? Don't forget that I saved your life. Qin Yu. You! Shi-er's face was cold and there was no warmth in her eyes. She stared blankly at the young man in front of her as the warm memories of the past surfaced in her mind. Back then, they were still young and made vows to each other. Why did everything change in the blink of an eye? Chapter 7:12. Say something. What is the relationship between you and that person? Qin Yu roared angrily, but there was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. At this moment, he could feel the despair and pain in Shi-er's eyes. Obviously, this destined woman's heart was on the verge of collapse. However, why didn't the system send out the sound of luck plundering? Ling Zhao guessed that it was because the real Qin Yu was already dead. This relationship was already over. What Ling Zhao was doing now was not to extract Shi-er's luck, but to get her submission. Before Ling Zhao met Shi-er, he only regarded her as an ordinary leak. But now this leak seemed to be more useful. With Shi-er's identity, perhaps he could use this opportunity to plot against the Sea Emperor? 6 demon god slaying emissary was somewhat difficult. But if this sea master was willing to take action, Dugu Yunjin would definitely die. As for how to persuade this sea overlord from the beginning to the end, Ling Zhao felt that this woman, Zi Yan, had a strong desire. What she wanted was not just a sea. Whether it was a human or a demon, as long as there was desire, there would be a flaw. In other words, such a person was easier to control. The existence of Ijan was a thorn in Ziyan's heart. What's more, now that I had disappeared, it was impossible for Ziyan not to know. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that the primordial overlord had not escaped, but had been captured by Ling Xiao. In this way, Sea Emperor, I will help you slay the heavenly crocodile and consolidate your position in the Sea Clan. You help me slay the emissary, and we both get what we need. Why not? Thinking of this, in the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance, Ling Xiao's mouth suddenly raised into a smile. He picked up a voice transmission talisman in his hand and said softly, "When we find Ijan's trace, spread the news of the heavenly crocodile clan's reappearance." Yes, Lord. With all the chess pieces in place, the situation was under control. The life of a villain was indeed dull and boring. "Qingyu, get out? Now!" In the restaurant, Xier closed her eyes in despair, not knowing how to explain at all. That's right. From an outsider's point of view, Ling Xiao's killing of young Master Mo Wu was simply too shocking. Did I disturb his mood of drinking? This sentence was more like an excuse to protect Xier from being implicated. But only Xier knew that she really had nothing to do with that young man, and she had never even met him. However, suddenly, as she looked at Qingyu in front of her and thought of that peerless figure in white, Xier's eyes were filled with disappointment and a trace of inexplicable emotion. It was also to save her life, but the situation today was even more dangerous. However, not only did the young man in white not have any ulterior motives, he didn't even leave his name behind. Although this made Xier feel grateful, she was also somewhat resentful. Could it be that my appearance is not worth your attention? Humph! You really did have an affair with him! Qingyu snorted coldly, slammed the door, and left. Xier, on the other hand, sat on the bed somewhat dejectedly and did not speak for a long time. Old beauty, empty and thin. 6 years of yearning went down the drain. In the end, the favor of saving her life became the shackles that bound her. Forget it, since you want the numinous treasure. When the starlight ceremony starts, I will return your favor, and then we will have nothing to do with each other. On the second day, the sky had just brightened, and the entire U-City was instantly bustling with activity. Countless cultivators walked on the streets and headed towards the magnificent ancient palace in the city. The reason why the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance was so awesome was not because of the cultivation of the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance master or because the Su family had many strong cultivators. It was because, regardless of the race, one needed resources and fortunes on the path to immortality. It was almost impossible to rely solely on the relic mystic realm to find all the fortunes one wanted. Oh, unless one was the son of destiny. Oh, the Son of Destiny would also visit the auction house, okay? Therefore, the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance was probably a place where fortunes gathered, satisfying countless people's desire for fortunes. One could find the numinous treasures and spiritual materials that met one's requirements here, and one could also sell the ones that one did not need. In this way, everyone took what they needed and was surrounded by all living beings. In other words, although the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance was a human force, it also provided convenience for the demons. Therefore, in this sea area, it also had extremely high prestige. Especially today's Starlight Ceremony, which was the annual event of the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance. Therefore, the moment the auction house's door opened, there were no empty seats in the venue. Xier and Qingyu sat in the corner. At this moment, their faces were somewhat cold, and they did not communicate. Only when there was a sudden burst of noise in the venue did the two of them turn their heads to look at the entrance. They saw a white-robed figure slowly walking over. He had an immortal aura and was otherworldly. It was the white-robed young master that had spread throughout the entire U-City yesterday. It's him. Xier's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of excitement could not help but arise in her heart. Ling Xiao only looked at everyone calmly and finally sat on the only empty seat beside Shi. Of course, this empty seat was originally reserved for himself. In this world, all methods did not deviate from the origin. If one wanted to win the favor of a girl, they naturally had to use some small trick. Young master. Shi pursed her red lips and looked shyly at Ling Xiao's main body beside her. She nodded slightly. Yes. Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent, neither cold nor hot. Playing hard to get was the easiest way to make people let down their guard. Thank you very much for yesterday, young master. Shi mustered up her courage and stared at Ling Xiao with a pair of clear eyes. However, she did not know why, but when she saw that peerless immortal face so close to her, she actually felt a ripple in her heart. What can I do? This young master was really handsome and was even more dazzling than the stars in the sky. That pair of deep black eyes were like spirals in the ninth heaven. One look and one would fall into them. Young master. Shi still does not know your name. You. Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. His originally cold and arrogant face suddenly became as bright as the sun. Shi only felt her heart beating violently and her pretty face was already flushed red. Ling Xiao. Above the clouds. Is this the young master's name? Indeed, otherworldly and domineering. It is very suitable for the young master's temperament. She then looked at Qingyu beside her. Qingyu? Lust? Humph. Vulgar. Low. Welcome everyone to the annual Sea Area auction of Yunlai Merchant Union. Just as Shi was pondering in her heart and looking forward to it, a beautiful woman in a red dress suddenly walked over from the center of the auction hall. This person was called Yunyang. She was the owner of the auction house in Yu City. She was a third-stage divine emperor and beautiful and enchanting. Yesterday, when Ling Xiao arrived, they had already met. Since everyone is here, the auction will officially begin. Yunyang waved her jade-like hand. Immediately, 10 young girls in beautiful clothes walked out from behind her. Each of them held a jade plate in their hand. The plates were filled with spiritual power and covered by immortal light. There are 10 Tao artifacts here. All of them are of high quality. If you like them, you must not miss them. Otherwise, you will have to wait until next year. Yunyang smiled sweetly and casually lifted the immortal light on one of the jade plates. Her eyes were filled with temptation. The first Tao artifact is called 9 Heavens Jasper Flute. It is a high-grade Tao artifact. The starting price is 100,000 spiritual stones. A high-grade Tao artifact? Beside Qingyu's eyes trembled slightly. She said excitedly, I want it. I want it. Chapter 7:13. 150,000 Spirit Stones. Shi's pretty face was indifferent as she nodded and shouted a price. 200,000, 300,000. Soon, the atmosphere in the auction hall became heated. The value of a high-grade Tao artifact could not be measured by spirit stones. Hurry up and bid. Don't forget that I saved your life. Qingyu said in a low voice. Seeing that Shi did not say anything, he panicked. Yunyang only smiled when the price was raised to 500,000 spiritual stones. Is there anyone else who wants to make a bid? If not, this flute. 600,000 spirit stones. Before Yunyang could finish her sentence, Shi suddenly shouted a price. Immediately, the sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air was heard. Many people turned their heads and looked at Shi. Obviously, they did not expect that this girl, who seemed to have no background, would carry so many spirit stones on her. However, among the countless eyes, there were a few gloomy ones. It was obvious that they had evil intentions. Ling Xiao had shocked Yu City in yesterday's battle. However, this girl named Shi was just a foil. If not for the fact that Ling Xiao happened to be there, she would have become Zhang Wu's slave by now. If Lord Ling Xiao was interested in her, the crowd would not dare to think too much. However, Lord Ling Xiao did not look at her. 600,000 spirit stones. Anyone else? If not, this flute belongs to this girl. Yunyang smiled charmingly and finally handed the jade flute to Shi. Brother Qin Yu, this flute belongs to you. Shi handed over the spirit stones and handed the jade flute to Qin Yu. She was relieved. After all, she had made up her mind. After leaving Yu City, she would have nothing to do with Qin Yu. Now, she gave him the flute to repay his kindness. The second item is an ancient item. Although it is broken, it is still a high-grade Dao artifact. The price is 100,000 spirit stones. Everyone, please. An ancient item. Shi I want it. I want it. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with greed. Shi brows were gloomy. Shi you said you would repay me well. You wouldn't be reluctant to spend spirit stones on me, right? Sigh, Shi sighed softly, feeling somewhat helpless. Was this Qin Yu a fool? If you are sincere to me, I will be yours, let alone a few spirit stones. But in the end, silly beau. 150,000. The auction was in full swing, but Shi-er's heart gradually turned cold. This was because Qin Yu had shown great interest in every single item being auctioned. F***ck. Shi had a lot of spirit stones in her hands, but in this short period of time, she had already spent more than 3 million spirit stones. As such, the current her was even more alluring than the spirit treasure on the high platform. The deity overlord girl, with her wealth, was alone at the edge of the sea. Even if she had some background, as long as she did it secretly enough, no one would know who killed her. Moreover, the young master of the demonic Crow royal clan died because of her. Even if there were people who suspected her, they would most likely think that it was the doing of the demonic Crow royal clan's experts. Of course, all of this was within Ling Zhao's plan. I want the spirit treasure, and the spirit stones are also mine. Shi-er's thoughts were simple. In addition, she only wanted to repay Qin Yu's kindness and draw a clear line between them. Thus, she would naturally not reject Qin Yu's request. Unknowingly, she had become the target of public criticism. At that time, Qin Yu would betray her and completely cut off the burden in her heart. At that time, it would be time for me, Ling Xiao, to display my might. Do you think this is the end? Childish. Where are you going? Such a coincidence? I want to go too. When they arrived, Ling Xiao would give her an even bigger surprise. In the end, 9 out of the 10 Dao artifacts of the Starlight Ceremony fell into Shi-er's hands. At this time, even Yunyang's eyes were filled with astonishment when she looked at the young girl. Not to mention that this Shi-er was unfamiliar, even the young masters of the 10 great royal clans would not be able to take out so many spirit stones. However, with the spirit treasure in her hands, it was another matter whether she could walk out of the Forgotten Isle or not. Ha ha ha, everyone, I still have the last auction item in my hands. However, this item is not a spirit treasure. It is a divine item. Yunyang glanced at Ling Xiao intentionally and then took out a blue crystal from her hand. A dense water vapor instantly spread out. The terrifying Taoist rhyme extended for hundreds of miles and enveloped the entire venue. There seemed to be rippling light on the crystal. It was full of immortal intent. With one look, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. The moment she saw the crystal, Shi-er's eyes suddenly widened. Even the mysterious totem between her eyebrows seemed to have Taoist rhyme circulating. This immortal stone was found by the experts of the Cloud Gathering Business Alliance in the depths of the Endless Sea. It contains a drop of black heaven water essence. It can be said to be a supreme divine item for the comprehension of Taoist rhyme. Everyone, you can bid as you wish. Yunyang smiled indifferently. Especially when she saw the greed on everyone's faces, it made her eyes flash with a trace of playfulness. The black heaven water essence was originally not part of the auction. It was something that Lord Ling Xiao asked the Cloud Alliance to take out. Although Yunyang did not know what her young master's intention was, since he had the Alliance leader token, it was not her place to order him around. The Cloud Alliance was his. Not to mention a drop of black heaven water essence, even if he sold all the treasures in the Cloud Alliance. Damn. Young master, is he thinking of running away? The Cloud Gathering Business Alliance has closed down. The Cloud Gathering Business Alliance has closed down. The little alliance leader sold his spirit treasure and ran away with his sister-in-law? Bid as you wish? I will bid 1 spirit stone. A sea region prodigy blinked his large eyes and tried to test the waters. 100,000. However, the moment he finished speaking, he felt countless disdainful gazes around him. Idiot Bo-e, you want the opportunity but don't want to pay the price. Are you thinking of peaches? 500,000, 700,000. The black heaven water essence contained a trace of water Taoist law. Such an opportunity was a fatal temptation to the sea region prodigies. The difference between a prodigy and a monstrous talent was mainly in the path of Taoist law. With Taoist law, one would be invincible among his peers. The reason Ling Xiao took out such an opportunity was not to fulfill everyone's wish. It was just for Shi-Er. The system had already notified him that Shi-Er's Taoist law was already flourishing and was only 1 step away from greater mastery. Therefore, she would definitely be tempted by such an opportunity. However, Qing Yu, who was disguised as the pure Tao body, had used up all the spirit stones in Shi-Er's possession. This could be seen from the fact that she did not bid for the 10th Tao artifact. Of course, even if Shi-Er still had spirit stones, Yunyang would take out the 11th and 12th Tao artifacts until she was completely drained. After all, the business alliance belonged to Ling Xiao. Everything was under Ling Xiao's control. Therefore, at this time, Shi-Er could only watch as everyone competed for the water essence. She was extremely angry with Qin Yu, but she could not do anything. Stupid sister, do you want the opportunity or not? Not only is my brother handsome, but he is also extremely rich. Therefore, there was no need to worry about the prodigy not trembling. It was the same trick. She had to have a good impression of him first before she could fall in love with him. Sigh. Shi-Er's pretty face was full of bitterness. She clenched her jade-like hands tightly, and her eyes flickered with a touch of grievance. If Qing Yu was not insatiably greedy and asked for the 9th Tao artifact, she would not have to watch the opportunity fall into the hands of others. Could this be the so-called loss of both love and opportunity? Do you really want it? Just as Shi-Er was feeling bitter and regretful, the mysterious white-robed man beside her suddenly opened his mouth and said with a chuckle, Chapter 714. Young Master? Shi-Er turned her head with a hint of hope in her eyes. But in the blink of an eye, her eyes dimmed again. She was not a greedy woman and would not yield to anyone for the sake of fortune. Although the young master in front of her was mysterious and powerful, they did not know each other. How could he help her fight for the fortune? I can help you bid for the Black Heaven Waterflower, but you have to give me 2 Tao artifacts in exchange. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He did not care about the 2 Tao artifact. In fact, he wanted to lure Shi-Er into a trap. 2 Tao artifacts were worth 1,000,000 spirit stones. But to Ling Xiao, it was nothing. 2 Tao artifacts? Okay. Shi-Er's eyes flashed. In her opinion, although the Black Heaven Waterflower was precious, the 2 Tao artifacts were equally valuable. In exchange, she would not be taking advantage of the young master. 500,000 spirit stones. In the auction house, there were still people raising the price. 600,000 spirit stones. Suddenly, a young man sitting at the front of the hall shouted out a price. Behind him, a white-haired old man stood up and swept his cold gaze over the crowd. The meaning in his gaze was self-evident. It's the young master of the Bone Clam clan, Gu Ao. I didn't expect him to come too. Sigh, it seems that this fortune has nothing to do with us. Go ahead if you dare. The Bone Clam clan is the king clan of the Endless Sea. They are even more terrifying than the Demon Crow clan. It is said that their defense is second only to the Chien Turtle clan. F***CK, 2 million spirit stones. However, just as the discussion in the auction hall resounded, an indifferent and low voice suddenly sounded from the auction hall. Then, the entire auction house fell into a dead silence. Everyone turned their heads in surprise as they looked at the white-clothed youth in the corner. There was a trace of surprise in their eyes. It's him. It's the young man who killed Zhang Wu. This is getting interesting. Gu Ao frowned and turned to Ling Xiao. However, the latter did not even look at him. Gu Ao's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. However, Zhang Wu's death yesterday was a shock to the Sea tribe. At this time, he didn't dare to say anything. He could only brace himself and continue to raise the price. 1 million spirit stones. 3 million. Gu Ao gritted his teeth fiercely. He only had a little over 2 million spiritual stones on him, but this black heaven water bloom was a heavenly fortune to him. As long as he could obtain this treasure, even if he could not comprehend the Tao law, his cultivation would definitely have a breakthrough. Young master, if you are willing to give me the black heaven water bloom, my Bone Clam clan is very willing to become friends with you. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, then smiled indifferently. Are you worthy? You! Hee, young Lord Gu Ao, if you don't increase the price, this water bloom will belong to Mr. Ling, Yunyang smiled. In the end, under Gu Ao's gloomy gaze, she signaled the maidservant to hand the blue divine crystal to Ling Xiao. 3 million spirit stones, she revealed a pained expression. This was much more valuable than 2 Tao artifacts. It's yours. However, at this time, Ling Xiao did not say anything. He casually handed the divine crystal to Shi. Young master, can I owe you the Tao artifact first? Don't worry, I will go back to the clan to get it. If you don't trust me, you can come with me. Shi-er's beautiful face blushed. She still had 1 Tao artifact on her, but it was her natal spiritual treasure. If she gave it to Ling Xiao, her strength would definitely be greatly affected. No hurry. Send me a message when you have it. This water bloom is very precious. You better not let anyone know that it is in your hands. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He handed Shi-er a voice transmission talisman and turned to walk out of the venue. The trap had been set. Next, it was time to wait for the harvest. Shi-er, can you give me those Tao artifacts? Qing Yu looked at Shi-er greedily, but there was a gloomy expression between his brows. Qing Yu, take these 9 Tao artifacts and the ancient Tao tablet as my repayment for saving my life. In the future, let's not meet again. Shi-er casually threw a Qianquan bag to Qing Yu and turned to leave. However, at this time, Qing Yu shook his head and sneered. Shi-er, could it be that your life is only worth 9 Tao artifacts? Qing Yu, don't go too far. Shi-er clenched her silver teeth. The resentment in her heart was on the verge of exploding. Especially after seeing the temperament of the young master in white, Qing Yu in front of her was even more like a joke. A despicable person. How could she miss such a person for 6 years? That was why there was no harm if there was no comparison. Moreover, all of this was deliberately arranged by someone with ulterior motive. Go too far? Isn't it all because I saved your life that you're where you are today? Shi-er, I won't force you. Give me your Qianquan bag, and we will have nothing to do with each other in the future. Qing Yu sneered. This time, Shi-er didn't pay any attention to him. She raised her foot and walked towards the distance. Shi-er, you will regret it. Don't think that you can easily get rid of me now that you have someone else. Qing Yu's tone was resentful, but Shi-er sighed softly. Have someone else? I hope that the peerless young master is the one I love. But am I worthy? Beat. The destined girl worships the antagonist. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 antagonist points. Outside U City, Ling Xiao stood on a green mountain with his hands behind his back. His clothes fluttered in the wind. At this time, there was not much fluctuation on his face. Compared to Shi'er, what he cared more about now was the whereabouts of Yijan. After all, this chess piece was the key to the layout of the sea area. Of course, even if he did not appear in the end, Ling Xiao could arrange for someone else to replace his identity. But in that way there would be a flaw. Of course, the layout had to be real and fake to confuse people. Next, it's time to completely cut off Shi-er's feelings for Qin Yu. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, and his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. At the same time, outside the Cloud Alliance, the pure Tao body disguised as Qin Yu stepped forward and walked towards Gu Ao, who walked out of the auction house. Young Lord Gu. Who are you? Gu Ao's expression was gloomy, and his heart was filled with anger. When he saw Ling Xiao's Tao body stopping him alone, his eyes suddenly flashed with a murderous intent. Young Lord Gu, I can help you get the Black Heaven Waterflower. Ling Xiao's Tao body raised the corner of his mouth into a sinister smile, but Gu Ao's expression quietly froze, and he pretended to be calm. You mean, you know the identity of the white-robed young master? I don't know his identity, but I know that the Black Heaven Waterflower is not with him now. Ling Xiao's Tao body shook his head, and his eyes suddenly became gloomy. It's not with him. Hearing that, Gu Ao's eyes suddenly flashed with excitement. The rumors about the white-robed young master had caused a stir in U City. Gu Ao did not think that he could deal with this mysterious young man from the human tribe who had a strong follower behind him. However, if the Black Heaven Waterflower was not with him, who else on this forgotten islet was worthy of his fear? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.